Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner. This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to another episode of Submission Radio. It's the 17th of April. Dennis Gradov here with Kasper Rosalowski on the eve of UFC Tampa after an exciting card, and we have an exciting show for you guys this week.
What a great card. We're going to be breaking it down later on in the show, but before we get to business and discuss things, we've got to tell you who we've got on this show. Sexy guest, as per usual, Cris Cyborg, making her long-awaited return to Submission Radio. I think it's been at least a good year since we've spoken to Cris. She's coming back. She's fighting UFC 198. She's taking on Leslie Smith, and you best believe the boys have a lot of questions for Cris. They've been pent up. So many things to ask her. So Cris Cyborg is going to be on the show. She's actually the first cab off the rank. Then we've got Jon Fitch making his return to the show. A lot of things to talk to Jon Fitch about. For those who don't know, he won a world title, so there's that to talk about. He's currently the king of the county down in World Series of Fighting, and he's kind of the man who's spearheading this whole Fight Association and Ali Act in MMA, trying to really get it a part of obviously the industry. So in a few years, we may have that man to thank for a lot of things. So I don't know about you guys. I don't really understand a lot about this Ali Act and Fight Association. So there's a lot that we want to ask him about that, and hopefully he teaches us a lot of things. And the California Kid, Submission Radio alumni. I mean, somewhere there's like a corner office in the Submission Radio building with Urijah Faber's name that obviously he never, that he's never in because he's busy doing Urijah Faber things. But such a guy that's been on the show so many times. We've got Urijah Faber, and obviously he's got a massive fight. So a lot of stuff to talk about and a lot of people to talk to on this week's show.
Yeah, that's right, guys. And listen, we get a lot of people asking where they can listen to the show. If you are listening to this on YouTube, you can actually check it out on Stitcher. You can check it out on iTunes. You can check it out on TuneIn. A lot of great SoundCloud as well. A lot of great opportunities for you to listen to Submission Radio. So don't feel pigeonholed. You can check it out across a different bunch of platforms, whatever's easiest to you. And also the social media, Submission Radio, Twitter, Submission AUS, at Submission AUS. We've got a whole bunch of fun up there. Make sure to follow us and get in touch with us. And also the Facebook page, facebook.com/Submission Radio AUS. A lot of fun there. We've been chatting to a lot of listeners there, getting a lot of messages through there. So don't be shy. Shoot us your messages. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know your thoughts about the world of MMA. We love chatting to you guys, and we love getting to know you. So a lot of exciting stuff happening. And speaking of great interactions with listeners, Cass, we've been getting a bunch of reviews.
Yeah, a bunch of sexy reviews. A lot of them 5 stars. Actually, pretty much almost every single one of them 5 stars. And you know what? You guys give us whatever you feel we're worth. No pressure there. But yeah, obviously when you do enjoy the show and support the show, and you go on iTunes and you give us a review with however many stars, it lets iTunes know that the show is decent and people are listening and all that good stuff. So we may not have t-shirts, not yet, but if you do want to support the show, give us a sexy iTunes review.
Yeah, that's right. And for everybody out there who doesn't know, we've also got the website, submissionradio.com, and that sort of collects all the information together as well. So jump on there if you're sort of confused where to go, and you'll always find a link to what you're looking for. But without further ado, guys, it has been a while since this person's been on the program, and Cass, you're about to introduce her.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a multiple-time world champion. She's a former Strikeforce champion, a current Invicta champion. She'll be making a promotional debut at UFC 198 against Leslie Smith. We're very excited to welcome back Cris Cyborg Justino to Submission Radio. Cris, welcome back to the program. How's it going today?
I'm great. Thank you for a big opportunity to talk about my life and my career.
No, it's all our pleasure. Now, you've had a very successful career in Strikeforce, Elite XC, and recently Invicta. How does it feel, and what does it mean to you to finally be in the UFC?
The first thing, I think a big opportunity for me, some news fans don't know about me, because if you figure out now the new fans just think about UFC, don't think about Strikeforce before, Elite XC, and I think it will be an opportunity for the people to know me a little bit more.
Was it always an important goal of yours to end up in the UFC? And if you had retired as the Invicta champion, having never fought in the UFC, would you have been satisfied with your career?
Something I really happy about my career, because I never have to be in UFC for people know me. If you go any place in Brazil, in the world, and they ask Cyborg, everyone knows Cyborg, and because I did hard work, because before I never have it behind me some big promotion like UFC. It's easy when you fight UFC and people know you everywhere because UFC help you promotion, And, before this, I was fighting Invicta, and I still fight Invicta, defend my belt, but I never think about I have to be a promotion making me. I think you have to make your the best inside the promotion, and the big opportunity is coming. You just have to wait, have patience, train.
Well, you haven't fought in Brazil in almost 10 years. How happy were you when you found out that you'd be making your UFC debut, not only in your home country, but in your hometown of Curitiba?
I felt very blessed because this is a big opportunity for me. And I think 10 years ago, I did my first fight in Brazil, and all my fans still follow my career. And now I will fight there. It will be my first fight UFC in Brazil, in my city. I think I feel so special. I think I have to train so hard. This is motivated me, training for me can do great fights for everyone deserves for this opportunity to have in my life.
For sure. Now, when you pictured your UFC debut for many years, did you ever expect that it would be against Leslie Smith, or did you picture somebody else?
I never chose opponent. I always, if you have someone for me fight, I'm ready for the fight. And I learned this from my gym, shooter box. And, Leslie, I think is a great fighter, and I think I very respect her because she's accepted the fight, and they have a lot of fighters don't accept fight me 140.
Well, the UFC originally wanted to make your debut fight against Holly Holm, and Holly's manager explained to the Albuquerque Journal that they weren't interested in that fight. Are you disappointed that Holly turned down the fight?
I think this last fight, she loses this fight. I think she has to figure out everything, her trainings, and I respect. You cannot make fighter get a challenge. I think if you want to challenge yourself, you accept. I think if then have a plan for Holly, and maybe she want to be champion 135 again, and maybe no, I think she wants to be champion again, and she get her Fox. But if you maybe make super fight 140 for the fans, if she thinks it's a great idea for her, but I think she's getting Fox now because she wants to be champ again. I respect this, and maybe other opportunity, I'm open for this, I can defend my belt 145, and they'll be open for fight 140.
Sure. And just while we're talking about you and Holly, that obviously is a super fight that the fans would like to see. If Holly did accept that fight, with her striking accomplishments and your striking background, how do you think that fight would have gone? How do you see that fight playing out?
I think it'd be a really nice fight. I love fight be stand-up. Everybody think I don't have a ground game, but man, I'm a brown belt jiu-jitsu, and I'm Brazilian jiu-jitsu, train a lot of jiu-jitsu. And I really like jiu-jitsu, but I like how excited my fans and all the fans like the strike fight. And the two people, striker and fight stand-up, I think everybody loves this fight like this. And I think me and Holly will be excited fight. I think it can be fight of night, because she great stand-up, and I like this stand-up. It'll be nice fight.
Now, you've already faced some of the best girls at 145. Do you feel that Leslie is on the same level as your past competition?
Leslie, if you watch her fights, she's a very tough girl. She's accept challenge, and I respect all my opponents. And I think if she wants to fight me, because she's already wants to fight me, doesn't matter. I think she just heard her say, I want to fight Cyborg. And it doesn't mean she know it already. I think she know it. She know be step with me in the cage.
What do you think? What is it that makes Leslie dangerous and makes her a dangerous opponent, in your opinion?
I think she courage, because everyone say no one fight me, and she say no, I want to fight Cyborg, and very respectful too, because she told me, Cris, maybe I will fight together because I know her. I said, man, really nice. And she said, I know it's big dream, it'll be UFC, and I want to be part of this, and we can make nice fight. And I think she's great, and she's had big heart, and all the fights of her always go for points because she don't give up, and she's walk straight. And I think she can be dangerous because she's striker, and she not quick. She likes to fight. She's.
Mm-mm. Well, Leslie has shown a lot of respect towards you. She also mentioned that the two of you sparred together in the past, and because of that, she feels confident in fighting you. What can you tell us about those sparring sessions between you and Leslie?
You know, this I was training in my gym, and she showed up, and I know her coach from Shoot Box, and she said, I would like to make sparring. I have fight. And he did a great sparring, you know, everybody, I think, really cool, and with different division, and I should say you helped me getting, you know, motivated, getting me experience, and looks like me, man, I like find other things for me can have experience for getting better MMA, and I don't know, I think she really liked this fight together, she think we can make great fight.
I'm curious, Cris, how long ago was that? How long ago did you guys train and spar together?
Maybe 2012.
Okay, so about 4 years ago. Those sparring sessions, when you think back on them, you versus Leslie, do they give you any extra confidence against her?
You know, you have to train every day, you know. My game, everyone know my game, you know. I want to call her, I want to KO her, and if I have opportunity to go submit, I go submit. And, of course, you're getting better in 4 years, you know, me or her.
And in those 4 years ago, who got the upper hand in those sparring sessions? When you think back to it, who sort of dominated the other person in those sessions?
I don't know. I don't know this question. You go watch this fight, next fight, and you can see what's getting better, you know?
All right, sure. I'm just wondering, have you, when you sort of think back to her 4 years ago, have you had a chance to study her much? And did you get a chance to watch her latest fight against Rin Nakai?
I watched her last fight, in Australia, and she's good, and she won the points, and yeah, I'll be ready for any situation. I'll be ready. I cannot. My team study my opponent. I just worry about what I want to do with her in the octagon, you know. And my team study her, and we train. You know, I think you did it 4 years ago. It's done. You know, I think we train just for help her and for her fight, and this is done. Now we fight is May 14th. We be in different sites.
Now, your last 3 fights have ended in first round. Are you anticipating another first round KO?
You know, you never think you want to lose. You want to win the fight first round. You have to be ready for all the rounds. And I think this fight, I think it'll be 3 rounds. I always fight 5 rounds, and I'm ready for the 3 rounds. You know, if it happened, you win before, it's blessed. If not, we'll be ready for war, 3 rounds.
Now, the other thing, Cris, this will also be the first time that you're making the cut to 140 pounds. Considering the ban on IVs, how tough are you expecting this cut to be?
This is my second time I make 140. My first fight I did in USA, I make 140 against Shayna Baszler.
Right.
And this is my second cut. And, you know, now I work with my nutrition almost 2 years. And because we work a lot about 135, but we take out the 135 table, and now just to be super fight 140 and keep my division. And I think you really very well. We almost 2 years training, and I think I'll be okay. I think it's a big challenge for me, of course, because for me cut to 145 is really hard, and I think it'll be 40 and it'll be easy, but. Man, I accept this fight, I accept this challenge, and I like challenge. I think I would be aware to make nice fight.
Well, it's obviously still a way away, but just wondering, what kind of weight are you walking around now in your training?
This is cannot say secret.
All right, top secret, no worries. Well, you know, we spoke to Brian Stan, who is friends with your nutritionist George Lockhart, and he believes that you can make 135 pounds, but one of the things he believes is holding you back is the uncertainty of getting consistent big fights. Is that true? And if the UFC guaranteed you regular big fights at 135, would you be more likely to cut to 135? Or is that completely off the table?
No, we really, in my last fight, I would say I don't drop 135. It's too much for me. I make 140, super fight, and I keep my division 145. I just make it big fights if you be 140, you know. And this has never happened. When you were champion and you clean your division, you go up. But because I don't have any option for go 155, I'm go 5 pounds, and it'll be a big challenge for my career and for me and my team. And I go for 140 for make super fight. But I don't really think I will be 135, and I really have a lot of struggle for make 145, and the 140 will be big challenge and at the end of the challenge.
Sure. If for whatever reason the UFC or even Invicta had a 155 division, would that be something that you'd be interested in, going up to 155 where the cut would be a lot easier?
Of course, tomorrow. If they have 155, we fight tomorrow. Don't have to cut away. We fight tomorrow. It'll be amazing. It'll be amazing. Of course, I'll be open for 155, and I never had this opportunity. For me, it'll be amazing.
Now, last year you said that you wanted to retire in 3 years so that you can have babies and start a family. Is that still the case? Will you still retire in 3 years, or do you think that because you're now in the UFC, you may want to stick around a bit longer?
I'm in fight almost 10 years, 11 years, and I never fight about money. And I fight because I love this job, and I know when you love your job and you work hard, and God will bless you. And this is dream. I want to be I have kids, and I'm 30 now. In 3 years, I'll be 33, and this plan is still happen. It's still going on in my mind. But have a lot of things before you get a kid. You have to marry. You have to, it's a lot of things going on. It's not just to have a kid. But this is a dream. It's still in my heart. And I think when you're getting 30. This dream come more close than be world champ, other division. I think it's really different when I never have a kid, but I have one niece. She look like my kid. She's my look like stepdaughter, and I take care of her young, and I feel so love her. I love so much. I cannot explain. And I think it be champion or other belt or any money, pay the love you have someone, come from you. And I don't know, this dream keep my heart.
It's interesting because obviously the whole possibly having a 155 division in the UFC, that might take some time. So if you are at a sort of crossroads between becoming the UFC 155 champion or starting a family, you're saying that you'll probably go the road of the family?
It's for have a kid, it's 1 year, man. It's not so much. It's 1 year. Already in my career, I stay maybe... In my career, I was 10 years or 11 years fight, but every 2 years, I think I stay 4 years in my career between 10, no fighting, because no fight opponent for me, and don't have event. I don't think change anything. If I stop 1 year for have a kid and come back fight, I think it'll be a big deal. I can do this because all my career happened this a lot of times. And always I come back train, and I'm a champ still,
Yeah, I was going to say, you are a multiple-time world champion in other organizations, such as Invicta and Strikeforce, but the UFC, they don't have a featherweight division, so there's no belt for you to go after. What exactly is your goal in the UFC, and what are you looking to achieve with your UFC run?
I think it will be a super fight for my fans, super fight for me, and I don't want to leave my division. I want to keep 145. I want to keep world champ, defend my belt, and after this fight, I would my belt Invicta. And I think it's a big challenge and opportunity for me to fight UFC 140.
So you will be going back to Invicta after this fight. You'll still be defending your title. Is that right?
Yes.
Have you thought much about what you would want to do next? After this fight against Leslie Smith, would you want to go back to Invicta, or would you prefer to sort of have fights in the UFC? Because it seems like you've already achieved all there is in Invicta. What do you think your next fight would be? Because we heard that you might want to fight potentially at the Madison Square Garden show later on in the year.
Of course I cannot. I'm still world champ. I have to defend my belt, and UFC opened the door, or Invicta opened the door for me, helped me, and I don't want to leave the event. I don't want to defend my belt because the place have respect, they have my division. Of course, I will fight UFC 140, and if I have opportunity to fight UFC again, okay, I can fight, of course, 140, but I don't want to leave my division, and if I'm your champ, I cannot leave my division 145, And because UFC don't have my division, why I live in one place I have my division, and if I can make super fight, I will. I don't want to live invicta. I want to defend my belt, my next fight.
Well, for many years, your name has been linked to Ronda Rousey, and people have talked about a super fight between the two of you. Now that she's lost her title, is that fight still as important to you, or would you prefer to face the current champion in Miesha Tate?
Ronda Rousey, before, when she started training, I'm a welterweight champ, and she started training, she started talking about me, and she made this game, say want to fight me, and when I say want to fight her, she run the division. Before she's my division, she go 135. And, I don't know if she should come back fight after Holly Holm fight. But it's really normal when you lose a win, you're fired. You don't need to be behind the pillow, same she did. But, I can fight her anytime, just she has to accept the weight. She cannot be just 135, and if you want to challenge yourself, you can fight 140. She said this because she want to run from me a long time, and I think it's a very big fight people want to watch. I think all the fans want to watch this fight, just because me and her are a great fighter, but because she likes to speak so much.
So if it was a choice between fighting Miesha Tate or Ronda Rousey, are you saying you'd still pick Ronda Rousey?
Yeah, I think Miesha can wait a little bit.
Miesha Tate expressed in Brisbane in Australia that she's open to a super fight with you. Recently, you were both in the movie Fight Valley together. What's your relationship with Tate like, and what's your opinion of her as the new UFC bantamweight champion?
Miesha, if you watch her career, she's a very inspirational girl because she tried be a champ 2 times, and she don't give up. She's training. She getting better, and she world champ now. And I very respect her. I met her a long time ago, and I follow her career. We have a good relationship, and make me happy. She says she wants to challenge herself. She's a step fight, and I believe she don't have any problem. She said I don't have nothing to lose, and fight Cyborg. If I win, okay. If I lose, she other division. And maybe, if you think, maybe 1 thief, but if you lose, I have nothing to lose. But, I think it's a great opportunity for make a super fight. If she's open, this is amazing. We can make amazing fight. And I respect this. I like it when you like challenge the fighters, like challenge itself. And when you were champ, the right way, when you clean your division, go up and fight somebody else heavy. I don't know,
Well, there's a lot of criticism from fans about Miesha Tate fighting Amanda Nunes at UFC 200. What do you think of the matchup, and do you think it should have gone to Holly Holm instead?
I don't know. I think if before Verdun fight Cain Velasquez, and Cain Velasquez lose, and everybody want to make a rematch, and this rematch not happened because Cain Velasquez hurt, and now McGregor rematch Nate Diaz. And Nate Diaz submit him bad, and everybody watched this fight. And he's had a rematch, I think, UFC 200. And I don't know why Holly Holm cannot have her rematch with Miesha Tate. I understand. Then say, why fight Amanda Nunes? I understand Amanda Nunes, she's in the line. I think she's in the line long time before Ronda Rousey. I think she's in the line. I think Ronda have to make more fight before fight Miesha.
Yeah.
And because I think what's her name again? Forget. Amanda. She waited for the belt a long time. I think it's a big deal for her. But I think Holly Holm deserves the rematch.
I'm just wondering, Cris, obviously you're fighting Leslie Smith at UFC 198. That's the fight that you've got. When you spoke to the UFC originally, was there a possibility that you would fight Miesha Tate at UFC 200? Was that a fight they offered you at all?
About UFC 200 be July,
Yeah.
I don't know if I fight July or UFC 200 because it'll be very close to my fight. I will fight May 14th. And
but
I don't think it will happen. Maybe New York, maybe, but I think July 200 is too close. I will fight 198 and 2.
Before the Leslie Smith fight was confirmed, did they offer you Miesha Tate at all?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well,
No,
speaking
then
of...
offering for me. Then offering for me the names.
Okay.
Then try find somebody for me fight. Nobody say, Holly, me, Sean fight. No, nobody say anything. Say, okay, have Leslie, we want to fight you. Nobody giving me names for me can choose who I want to fight.
Are you at all concerned about, after beating Leslie, having trouble finding an opponent after that? Because it seems like a lot of the girls in the UFC aren't really willing to fight you at that weight.
Because this I will keep my division, This is not my job, make the girls fight me 140. I think this is UFC job. UFC didn't have contract with UFC. If UFC want to make super fight, then have to talk to the girls and make some super fight happen. This is no, I know my hands, my hands just to be ready for the fight.
Yeah. And Cris, we really appreciate your time. We'll let you go in just a moment. Just a couple more questions. Just wondering, does a part of you wish that Ronda Rousey had beaten Holly and kept her belt? Because then there's a good chance it would be you versus Ronda Rousey at UFC 200.
I don't think if Ronda be a champ 135 again, I think she's still run from me. I think she'll be big skills. I want to fight her just 135. I think she will be the same. Don't change. And maybe she's fight, I don't know, but I think she should be world champ again. I think she will still run for me. Or maybe not. Right. Maybe she's going to challenge herself and stop talking and do something in octagon side.
All right. Well, for now, your opponent is Leslie Smith. So, Cris, we have to get the official prediction from you. How are you beating Leslie at UFC 198?
I want to win, and doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I submit or KO her, but everybody know my style, and I like KO, and I will try my best for KO her.
Excellent. Well, the fans are happy to hear that, because I think when they think Cris Cyborg, they think KOs. And Cris, before we let you go, we know you're in the process of writing a book. Tell the fans, what can they expect from this book, and when will it be coming out?
I do know. I want to say, the people want to sponsor me too for this Fight 198. You can go my website, chriscyborg.com, and you explain how you can sponsor me. I think the last opportunity will be tomorrow. And about my book, I'm doing a book with George Lockhart, my nutrition. And because for my nutrition, for George, I think work with me is a big challenge for him, because this is the big cut. And I'm a really big girl. And, this book, we make a lot, ask for the question for people on Facebook, and the other girls, the guys have any questions, send to us, and we make one book. And they explain about food, explain for the girls, especially girls have to cut weight, and we hold more water. Girls hold more water than guys. It's more harder for you to take off the water. And when you period, it's really hard. And I can understand this, and he understands too, because he worked with me almost 2 years. And you'll be for help the girls cut weight, and normal girls too do other sports, want to be healthy and be, in shape. I think it'll be an amazing book, and I'm very excited for work with George.
Excellent. Yeah, sounds like it's going to be a great read. You mentioned sponsorships for UFC 98. I'm just wondering, Cris, what kind of capacity will those sponsors be? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the octagon, you'll be wearing Reebok, correct?
Yeah, we ride the Reebok, but we make the camp for 198. We make special. We make like a documentary, and we talk about, show a little bit, show my training, show couple things in my life and beginning my career. You're like a big movie. And if people want the opportunity for being in the movie with me, you can sponsor. You can send an email for Cris Cyborg MMA.gmail.com, and you can send an email. You can have an opportunity for being in the show with me. I think it'll be really nice, and it will show me all my work and show my life. And because UFC it's big, UFC 98 is a big dream coming true, and I think everyone you can watch my step by step I did it for be there.
There you go, guys. Well, don't forget to check out Cris taking on Leslie Smith at UFC 198 on May 14th. It'll be May 15th here in Australia due to the time difference, and the card is very stacked. Also featuring fights such as Damian Maia versus Matt Brown, Shogun versus Corey Anderson, Anderson Silva versus Uriah Hall, Jacare versus Vitor Belfort, and Fabrizio Verdun versus Stipe Miocic for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. You can also follow Cris on Twitter at Cris Cyborg. Cris, again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. We really appreciate it.
Welcome. Thanks so much. I'm sorry I'm in English, but I get it learning every day. And I appreciate all my fans, and God bless us.
Hey guys, this is Brian Stan. You're listening to Submission Radio.
Our next guest won his first ever major world title, the World Series of Fighting 30, becoming the World Series of Fighting welterweight champion, a long-time UFC and now World Series of Fighting veteran. It's a pleasure to welcome Jon Fitch to Submission Radio. Jon, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, welcome back, man. It's great to have you. It's crazy to think that after all these years, this is the first major world title you've won. It's been a couple of weeks now. So tell us, how does it feel to be the world champ?
Feels great. It's been a long time coming. Took so long to get here, I think, because I've been fighting in big organizations and against quality opponents. So it's a good feeling to finally get here.
Now, you've obviously fought in the main event across the UFC and World Series of Fighting for years. Was there a part of you that thought it may never happen, that you may never pick up a title or a belt?
No, I mean, I always knew that as long as I kept working and kept improving and kept at it, that eventually that everything would pay off and lead to a belt somewhere down the road. But I always tried to make sure to focus on the fun parts about it, the training and stuff that a lot of people don't like. Try to make the things that are the least fun the most fun, and keep that part of my training, and then let good things lead to where I am now.
You mentioned it was an emotional victory for you because of everything your family had done for you leading into that moment with supporting you in your wrestling and fighting. Can you talk a little bit about how much winning that title meant for you and your family?
I think it meant a lot for me because, all the people that have helped me over the years. I was recently, this past February, inducted to the Indiana Coaches Association Wrestling High School Hall of Fame, and I got to go back for a ceremony there, and I got to see a lot of the old coaches and people who were in my life in junior high and high school and college even, and, saw some old training partners, old friends, and just knowing who I've had helping me over the years and the travels I've been on, I think it was a culmination of all those people putting in hard work, being my friend and helping me along the way that made it possible for me to win a world title.
Well, you're currently 38 years old, yet many people feel like your title victory was your best performance in World Series of Fighting. How's the body feeling? And even though you're a bit older, do you see a long run as the World Series of Fighting champion?
I think so, yeah. I'm sure having a lot of fun. My body's healthy. I still got, I got little cricks and dings and things here and there from being on the road for so long. But as long as I keep my movements up and keep everything put together, go see my massage therapist and stuff, I've changed my training up a little bit more to incorporate more drilling and less just banging and getting after it like we used to back in the day. But, I feel like I got a lot of durability left, and I feel like as long as I'm having fun, I'm going to keep fighting.
We'll talk about your training in just a second, but I'm just wondering, this title victory, was it kind of like a career bucket list that you can now cross off, obviously winning, a title, a world title in a major organization, and you say you sort of want to keep going. Does this move you at all closer to retirement, or do you still feel invigorated now that you're champ and you think, this might actually extend your career?
Yeah, no, I feel invigorated. I feel like I'm doing things better than I ever have. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and there's plenty of competition out there to keep fighting. So, I feel like I'm in a good spot to keep doing that and keep fighting and keep putting on shows for my fans.
Let's talk about training. You've been living in Las Vegas for about a year and a half. Where did you do your camp for this fight?
I'm at One Kicks gym now here in Las Vegas. I've been here about a year and a half. And when I moved here, I took over the head coaching of the MMA teams. So me and Nick Blumgren have teamed up and are coaching guys now.
What's it been like for you? You're the head coach there. How are you finding, being in a gym? Do you feel like you're sort of the best fighter in the gym? I know a lot of over the years, the emphasis has always been, you go to a place where there's guys that are better than yourself, where there's guys that are going to challenge you. Do you find that you're getting those challenges that you need, even though you are sort of the head coach there?
Yeah, because we, smarter training. I've learned to train a lot smarter over the years. So you can put guys in positions to make them stronger or weaker. We have a lot of good young up-and-coming guys. Mark Dickman is fighting here coming up in Bellator in May, I think, 14th. And then Chidi Njikawani, he's a big welterweight. He's fighting also, I think Douglas Lima, I think he's fighting in June. So we got younger guys up and coming. Plenty of guys to work with, and we're in Vegas, so it's fight capital of the world. If we need sparring partners or need extra people to work with, it's not too hard to reach out and find somebody.
Well, when people hear Jon Fitch, they automatically think of AKA. Have you had any chance to go back there and train at all since you've left?
I've been a couple times, little brief stays. The guys are all doing great. They're doing good things. I left the gym in good hands with DC taking over, being the team captain and everything. So, those guys are doing real good.
We got to ask you, obviously, AKA, they have had a few issues with injuries, most notably, you mentioned DC, the new team captain, Daniel Cormier, having to pull out due to the injury against John Jones. Are you still close to Daniel, and what did you think when you heard the news?
Yeah, I heard it before the news broke because Crazy Bob was out cornering me for the fight. And it was before he even got the diagnosis from the doctor, really. And it's kind of like one of those freak things. I don't think it was training too hard, training too, whatever, when you're exhausted or anything like that. He's just kind of moving around real light. And sometimes those things happen. Maybe he might have hurt himself months ago and just toughed through it and never even realized that he was injured until he got kicked again, and the next thing you know, he's got a bad injury.
Well, Khabib and Kane are also AK stablemates, and they've had their careers affected because of injuries. Do you think the criticism over AK's training methods are fair, or have any truth to them in any way?
No, I think we have done things the right way over the years. I think, big guys tend to get injured more. If you ever owned a big dog, they don't live as long, and they have a lot more problems with joints and backs and stuff as they get older. It's one of those things when you're, 220 pounds or bigger, injuries happen more often and they're harder to heal from, I think. I don't think it's anything against the way they're training. It just happens. Your body breaks down, especially when you've got, two guys, 250 going at each other. It doesn't take much for a knee or an ankle to go.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, if anyone would know, it'd be yourself. How different is the training at One Kick Nick's compared to AK? Obviously, AK is very well known. One Kick Nick's not quite as known, but, how does the training compare?
I focus a lot more on the technique and the drills, and we do fast-paced and high-intensity type drills. And I think it's important to get more looks at the technique rather than just kind of going at it and battling every day. Just going 3 to 5, round to 3 to 5 minute rounds. Just going hard submissions or going hard sparring. I don't think you get as much out of it if you switch that into some more technical drills where you're keeping the pace high.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's jump over to some big news the past week. John S. Nash from Bloody Elbow published an article which broke news that the Ali Act is planning to be introduced by U.S. Congressman McWayne Mullen of Oklahoma. This is big news. I'm just wondering, John, how much of an influence did yourself and other fellow fighters working with you have on the congressman to suggest this act be introduced?
Yes, we've been looking for, a sponsor for this thing for a while, and the congressman stepped up. So we have been working very, very hard on this, for a while now. We've been doing it as long as we've been engaged in the lawsuit. So we've got a number of different angles going at the same time, trying to kind of open up the market and make things more even and fair for the fighters, the fans, and all the promoters too.
Well, of course, introducing the legislation is one thing, but getting it to pass is another. If this legislation does get introduced, what will need to happen for it to pass, and how likely is it that it will?
Well, I mean, we need support. We need fan support. We need fighter support. If all the fighters can bound together and request this and go to the ABC and ask them to put this in motion and help us get this passed, and we're all for this. I think that'll help greatly. But we also need the fighters to step up and reach out and join the Mixed Martial Arts Fighters Association too, because even if the Ali Act stuff gets passed, the only real way to give it teeth is to have an association that can help enforce the law. Because it's one of the big problems with boxing right now is there's no federal organization to force the laws to be followed. So unless you have a good lawyer and money to take the promoters to court, you're going to have a hard time reaping all the benefits, even though there are some things they kind of have to do because they're afraid that the federal government could come and prosecute them. So they do toe the line pretty well, but they still get away with some stuff. The mixed martial arts fighters need to be in an association so that we can force the hand of the policies and the law.
So that's a very interesting point, because I think a lot of fans don't really understand that. So if the Ali Act did pass, you're saying that basically the fighters would need to be a part of the association. Otherwise, like you mentioned, you guys would not be able to force the hand of the bigger companies and promoters to actually make those changes. Is that right?
Yeah, they would still possibly be forced out of fear of being prosecuted by the federal government, but there's not like a unit. There's not like a DEA type of group, that's funded by the government and is specifically set to enforce those rules. So usually, like with boxing, it has to come to some kind of litigation between the boxer, and that takes money and lawyers and stuff, So sometimes the bigger companies do get away with stuff.
I'm just curious, because there could be a situation where the Ali Act is passed, but the UFC roster doesn't join the association. I mean, in that situation, could that still stop a company like the UFC from enforcing the Ali Act if most of their fighters still don't join that association?
Yeah, I mean, there's different things, like, they may still try to control the contracts or, keep all the say in negotiating with sponsors, and there's different ways that they could avoid trying to comply with the Ali Act. But if it's too blatant, the government will probably step in.
Obviously, the Ali Act was designed for the sport of boxing, but how exactly does it work for MMA? And are you looking to bring an identical version to MMA or a tweaked version sort of specific to the sport, John?
Well, the main things we're looking for are things that will level the playing field. And one of them is disclosing all payments, right? So we know what everybody's getting paid. We know how much money's being made, right? We get to look at the books. So, if we're making $10 million for the show and they're only paying out, $500,000 in fight money, there's something wrong there. They'll also open up the contracts. They'll open up the rankings, right? So third-party rankings rather than the promotion themselves giving the rankings. It kind of makes them like a governing body over everything that way. So eliminating that, and then eliminating them having the matchmaking power.
Mm-hmm.
So we leave it up to a third party. So third-party rankings, third-party matchmaking, they put the fights together, and the promotions need to bid on the fights.
Right. We want to address some of the discussions surrounding the Ali Act with you, John. And, we figured who better to discuss them with than obviously yourself. I know a lot of the fans and probably a lot of the fighters as well, they may not sort of be educated with how exactly it works and what it's going to go down. So obviously this would be a great opportunity to clarify things. one of the things I'm wondering, how would fighters find stability with the Ali Act in place? Because at the moment, organizations hold fighters under a long-term contract, but under the Ali Act, those wouldn't exist. Do you see it being tough at all for fighters to consistently get fights and, also consistently fight the best fighters in the world?
No, I believe that something with the Muhammad Ali Act in place and the Fighters Association will encourage more fights. We've seen a decrease in the number of events and promotions out there worldwide. It's been going down over the years, and that's a big problem because there's plenty of promoters and people out there with money that want to put on shows, but the entry level into the market is very difficult. And one of the reasons it's so difficult is because those contracts, they sign fighters to long-term contracts, and then they don't keep them active. They don't keep them busy. Right? So this guy signs a 3 or 4 fight contract, and if the promotion is not willing to fight him 3 times a year, the guy sits around and waits and doesn't make any money. Well, if we had an open market, that promoter could sign him for a 4-fight contract, but if he's not keeping him active, he can go to another promotion and fight. He still has 4 fights with the other company, but he can go and fight with contracts under another promotion, kind of like boxing.
Okay, gotcha.
And in
regard, give more for fighters, more opportunity for promoters. The break-in would be easier for other promoters because they could afford big names. They could get a big name on their card. The rest of the card could be under, lower level guys, and then they're able to sell the whole show because they put on 2 names to the card.
In regards to performance bonuses or backroom bonuses, how would the Ali Act affect that at all?
Yeah, so you would know. It's an old thing that the NFL football players and those the teams used to pull, because it gives you like this added extra power and leverage over your athletes, right? Because if you have those backroom secret bonuses, you never know when you're going to get one. They're very arbitrary. You say something wrong in an interview, or you don't get the fight outcome finish that they wanted, you don't get the bonus. So you have a lot of guys ended up who kind of basically kiss ass and will play a role of a company man to try to get those bonuses. That's a lot of power that they kind of hold over the head of guys. It's also money that could just go into the fight purses directly. They've got the money there. Why don't they just divvy it up and put it in the fight purses?
That's interesting. And just on a side note, John, we respect, obviously, you likely can't tell us the specific amounts, but it is understood that, fighters in the UFC receive more money than what's being disclosed to the commission through those backroom bonuses. I'm just curious, is there a similar situation in World Series of Fighting?
I haven't heard of anybody else doing any other bonuses. I've heard rumors that Bellator has been doing signing bonuses, but that's the only type of bonuses that I've become aware of.
Now, one of the pillars of the Ali Act is making fights based on ranking. There's a lot of fights these days which are made that don't really take rankings into account, but they do have a lot of marketability. Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz is a big example of that. That fight made the UFC a lot of money, as well as Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz themselves. But with the Ali Act, it may not have been possible. Do you think there's a risk that the Ali Act could hurt those kinds of big money super fight matchups and the money that comes into the sport through those?
Well, at the end of the day, I think that the fighters are still going to get a say in who they fight. Just because they're the product doesn't mean that they're not allowed to have an opinion about who or when they fight. And if they're able to have a promoter come at them with a huge split of what the expected profits are when they bid for the fights, I don't see a problem with them taking that fight.
There was something interesting that Nate Diaz said in an interview not too long ago about how he thinks that the title is a fairy tale and how many non-champions are getting paid more than guys like, say, Demetrius Johnson, who's been champion for a long time and racking up wins for a long time. Do you think Diaz has a point at all? Is having a title these days in MMA becoming a little bit irrelevant compared? Obviously, it's a massive accomplishment, but compared to getting paid these days.
It is, but in a way, it's because of the promotions owning the titles rather than a third-party title being out there. And I think with the talking about the money, like where the money is, how much money is being made, like no one's ever showing numbers. Like, we're not really told like the complete numbers made in profits off of which fights. We don't get to see the true profits or the true numbers on viewership and a lot of things like that too. So it's kind of a mystery because they say certain guys aren't as exciting or certain fights don't sell as well. But I mean, where's the evidence? I mean, they don't necessarily offer up all that information for everybody to see.
Right.
It's kind of secret.
Mm-hmm. There's obviously a lot of mysteries in that sense, but there's also a part of it which is education, with many fighters focusing on what's directly ahead of them, which is usually their next fight. How well do you think most fighters understand the Ali Act and what it exactly brings?
Most don't. They don't really understand what it does for them. But that's one of the issues that we go through with the Mixed Martial Arts Fighters Association is just education. Just get guys to a meeting or sit down and talk with people, and to start talking to them, let them know what's out there and what's available and what the numbers are. I mean, you just start doing some casual searches of boxing and what the mid to upper tier guys are making in boxing. It doesn't make sense for a sport that's rumored to be dead. For those guys to be making those kinds of dollars compared to, I think there's undercard boxers who are making more money than, Dobson. So it's just strange that the money breaks down like that when you have a much more popular sport with much more viewership. The numbers shouldn't be like that.
I'm wondering, Jon, obviously we spoke about earlier in this interview some of the stuff that the Ali Act has to go through before it actually happens, but how quick can it happen? I mean, if everything goes to plan, how soon can it be in place?
I think a couple of years before we get everything.
Okay, so it's
really
not
ready to go.
It's not going to be something that just comes out of the blue.
I think things move faster these days with social media and being able to communicate with larger groups of people at once. So I think that's a relative time frame that could be seen as 2 years before we see like real change. We've already started to see a lot of change though with like free agency and a lot of the stuff with contracts that are happening. People don't hear much about that, but the contracts have changed a little bit. So like we're making headway for sure.
That's interesting. What kind of changes have you noticed in the contracts? I mean, it is a contract, so I don't know if you're allowed to tell us, but if you can, what have you noticed?
Well, just for one, I believe as soon as we filed the lawsuit, the base pay for UFC fighters went up to a higher scale immediately. So people start getting paid more right away. You start seeing the more guys are getting let go to go into free agency. I didn't think that would have been allowed. They kind of have to allow that to happen to show that they're not as monopolistic as we're pointing them out to be. I think they've also lightened up on some of the contracts that are forever, like the video game stuff. I think now, after a certain amount of time, you get your rights back.
Well, the free agent market has been a hot topic this year, with many big names from the UFC testing their worth and even leaving the company for bigger paydays. I mean, you've just been talking about it, but do you think it's a sign that the tide is turning? A lot of fighters are becoming disillusioned and heading further than ever in the direction of a fighters association.
Yeah, I believe so, because you're starting to see that the promotions are there to make money for themselves. They're not really working. A lot of them aren't really working with you, right? So I think they're kind of seeing that, so they might as well work for themselves. They might as well make the money that they're worth.
And Jon, we appreciate the time you're giving us. We'll let you go in just a moment. While we're sort of discussing legal matters, we haven't heard much about the actual class action lawsuit this year. Most notably, there was some inadvertently produced emails from Pride that the UFC wanted back. How's everything going? Are there any updates that you can share with us?
No, we're just in discovery right now, so that's going to take some time.
Wonderful. So from your perspective, everything is sort of going to plan, or are there any more hurdles than there were before that you can sort of discuss?
No, I think it's going well. I would have liked to see things move quicker, but people are so scared. People are so undereducated. It's hard to get people to to see a bigger picture when you're trying to explain to them that, the money they're making is good, but there should be a zero behind what they're making. Sometimes it's just too much for them to understand, especially if they've struggled with money in the past and now they're making a decent, steady paycheck, convincing them that it should be a much larger paycheck so that they don't have to worry about later in life. But it's slow going, but it's going.
And sort of just lastly on the Fighters Association, it seems like, unlike the Ali Act, which you say may happen in about a couple of years, it seems like the Fighters Association might be a little bit longer than that, something that you're sort of investing time in now so that your kids and maybe the next generation of fighters can sort of enjoy the benefits of that. Is that correct? Is it something that sort of you see coming to fruition soon? Is it on the horizon or still a while away?
I think a lot of this stuff will culminate in a similar time frame, because the Ali Act is going to bring a lot more curiosity from a lot of the fighters, and they're going to start looking for more answers, and then hopefully we'll be able to work with them and talk with them and start bringing them into the fold more and more for the Fighters Association.
Well, finally, we have to ask you, Jon, you're coming off a big win. You're the new champion. Who's next? Are we any closer to seeing that big fight between you and Jake Shields? Do you have anyone else in mind that you'd like to fight next? What's next for Jon Fitch?
Yeah, I think that would be the best fight right now. Would be that Jake Shields fight. I think that would be a real nice win on the career. It'd be a great title defense. I think it could be something for the fans to see. Hopefully, they can work out the contract deal with him and get that fight to happen. But there's some other guys that they got floating around in the World Series, so I'm not worried about finding a good opponent.
I'm just wondering, ideally, what sort of time frame are you looking at? Obviously, this situation with Jake Shields in his contract, it could take a while, but ideally, how long would you like to be back in the cage?
I don't know. Me and the wife were talking. We were figuring they'd probably have me back September, August, maybe. Mm-hmm. We'll see, though. I haven't heard any word yet.
Well, we have to finish off with this question, Jon. We ask this of all the champions that come on our program. Where's the title belt? Where do you hold it? Isn't it in the house? Is it in the gym? Where did you put that baby?
It's mobile. I take it around the house with me. Sits with me in the chair sometimes. It's next to me in bed. Sometimes I take it into the gym.
You're the first fighter that's given
I'm not ready to put it up on the wall yet.
No, and you know what? We wouldn't be either. That's something that we would do. You're the first fighter who's actually given that answer. Everyone's pretty, everyone downplays it. They're like, oh, I put it in a cupboard or I put it somewhere. You're the first fighter who's like, I'm bringing it around. I'm taking it over. Are you ever doing house chores or doing anything like vacuuming and you're wearing the title belt, anything like that?
No house chores yet. No.
Well, that's something on the agenda. Well, Jon, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for chatting with us. And obviously this education process, explaining to everyone things about the Fight Association and the Ali Act. Guys, make sure to check out Jon Fitch on Twitter by following him, obviously on Twitter at jonfitch.net. And Jon, for all these updates as far as the Ali Act and the Fight Association, any other links or places that people should check out?
The MMA FA.TV is the Fighters Association website. Mm-hmm. There's information on there if you're it's a fan wanting to know more about what we're doing, or if you're a fighter looking to get more involved and figure out what's up. It's an international association. That's why it's an association. We start here in America, but it'll cover everybody globally. It's the plan.
Hey everybody, this is Tyron, the chosen one Woodley. You are listening to Submission Radio.
Our next guest is fighting Dominick Cruz for the UFC Bantamweight title in one of the biggest feuds in the world of MMA. Joining us back here on Submission Radio, he is the California Kid, Urijah Faber. Urijah, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Good to see you guys. Good to talk to you.
It is always great when you come on. Now, we're getting straight into it. You've just wrapped up this media tour with Dominick Cruz going to UFC 199. We've got to ask, how much are you personally enjoying this feud? Because when we watched you at the Unstoppable Conference, you came out guns blazing, you didn't hold back, and you haven't had that with your last 4 opponents. Do you enjoy having such a personal rivalry, and is that a motivator for you?
It is kind of nice. I'm a nice guy, and to have someone you don't like and then you get to fight him, that's kind of how it's supposed to be, I think. It just hasn't worked out for me, as far as having enemies in the sport. which I'm not, it doesn't bother me too much, but it is nice to have someone I don't like.
Just curious, Uriah, was there much trash talk off camera, or was it something that just happened during the interviews?
Oh, no. It continued the whole time. Off, on, whatever.
You got to give us an example, man. Tell us a story. What was the vibe like? If we were a fly on the wall and there's just you and Dominick Cruz in the room, what was that like?
It was the continuation of exactly what you saw. I don't know if you saw the Herd show.
Yeah, we watched
that conversation went in and out of breaks. It went walking in and out of the room, just talking smack. That's it.
Well, during the Unstoppable press conference, you said to him, "Don't talk to me in a closed room because you're going to get whooped." What exactly did you mean by that? And do you feel like you guys might get into it if the wrong thing was said?
Not that necessarily. It's more a fact that, a guy makes his living and moving around. Close quarters is not the smart time for him to mouth off with nowhere to run.
During the stare down at that Unstoppable press conference, you guys went back and forth, and then Dominick held up his belt, and you made a motion like you weren't impressed. I'm just wondering, what exactly happened there, and what did you guys say to each other, if you remember?
I think I dropped an F-bomb or so once we were in the stare down and told him I'm going to F him up. And he said something like last chance, whatever, dude. I feel like I won the last fight when we fought. It was a close fight, but I thought I had a close first round that they could have given to him. I thought I had the third through the fourth, and I think he got the fifth round on takedown attempts that were basically just trying to stop the fight from happening. So, in my mind, he got beat up. I did not.
At the EA UFC 2 launch party, Dominick Cruz expressed his beliefs that while your skills haven't regressed, he believes you haven't gotten better while the MMA game has progressed, calling you uncoachable. He said, "I think that anytime someone goes there to coach him, he ends up kicking them out because he has to be the alpha. I think that's been the downfall of his career." What do you make of Cruz's comments, and do you feel like your style has progressed over the last few years?
My style has definitely progressed. I mean, even if you watch the first time when we fought, it was just nowhere to the level. I have my same coaches, Fabio Prado, Master Tong. I've got guys that have been with our team for years and years, like Justin Buckles and Danny Castillo. I've brought coaches in to try to, be someone that is there when I'm not, because my schedule is crazy, traveling, etc. And Dwayne actually left on his own. He was never kicked out of the gym at all.
Well, on the flip side, do you think that Dominick Cruz has improved over the years?
I'll tell you what has happened. I've seen a drastic change in his body from the very first time that I fought him to a year later when he fought. He took a whole year off and came back all ripped. Then he looked pretty good 2 years ago when he made his long-awaited return physically. And then all of a sudden he's got floppy boobs and back fat. I mean, there's no secret what's going on there, and I know he knows it. The truth is, I've looked the same since I've been like 13 years old. I've continued to be an athlete. I've continued to stay healthy. There's something fishy going on there, and he knows and I know that there's a big advantage coming to me because of that. And I'll just leave that at that and let USADA do their job.
I was going to follow up on that, but I guess we'll sort of leave it. And that's interesting because it's the last thing that you said last time we interviewed you, and we were out of time, so we never did get to follow up. But that's interesting that you're saying that. I'm just wondering, seeing as you believe that Cruz looked different, and you've said similar things about TJ Dillashaw, do you feel like you've already faced a more dangerous version of Cruz in the past than the one you'll be facing at UFC 199?
1,000%. And the truth is, I will give him the respect because he has the mental side and he has great technique, for what he's trying to do. But the truth is, he's a fraction physically from what he used to be, and it's still going to be a very tough fight. I mean, world champion's a world champion, and that's a mentality thing. But the odds are stacked in my favor.
Well, let's discuss your career. You've had an unbelievable run, having pivotal matchups in both the WEC and the UFC. In terms of importance, where do you put this fight at UFC 199? We know fighters say every upcoming fight is the most important in their careers, but compared to some of your biggest fights of all time, do you feel like this is the biggest one, and does this one have the most on the line for you?
It's hard to say everything is so at the moment, you know? Is this more of a build-up and more exciting than me taking a 10-day notice fight because Dominick got injured and pushing past a torn hamstring to fight Barao? 100%. Is this a different time in mixed martial arts where all eyes are on us? 100%. Have I been a warrior and fought 41 professional fights over 13 years and coming to a culmination of getting to fight my rival in California? Yes, this is a big fight for me and a lot's on the line, and I'm excited for it.
Do you feel like, because this fight is obviously going to happen after the Ultimate Fighter season 15, it didn't, Dominick Cruz was injured, and now here it is happening, I think almost 4 or 5 years later. Do you think this is a better time for this fight? It seems like the sport's even bigger. UFC 199 is going to be a huge pay-per-view. Do you think this is the perfect time for this fight?
This is the perfect time for this fight. I mean, that fight was supposed to be on the same card as Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva, which, you know, was kind of, you know, bittersweet that we didn't get to compete then. But, you know, I think this is the pinnacle of the sport. Every month that goes by, it's a new level for the sport. So being able to, you know, have a big fight at this point in the sport against somebody like this is an exciting time for me.
Well, you're obviously a previous WEC champion, and you hold so many records in the UFC, such as most wins in the bantamweight division, most submissions in the bantamweight division, most finishes in the bantamweight division. But the UFC title has eluded you. For your legacy, I'm just wondering, Uriah, how important is it for you to win that belt at UFC 199?
I mean, it's important for me. Belt, schmelt, whatever. Here's the truth. The WEC was owned by the UFC. It was the only organization at that level holding fights for our weight class. The way it was presented to me by Dana White, Lorenzo Fertitta, Joe Silva, and Sean Shelby was I was the champion of the world under Zuffa. Even if I weren't the champion at that time, would that take anything away from me? No. The only thing I can control is how I represent myself, what I put into things. I can't control outcomes. I will be doing everything in my power to win this fight. I will be willing to go to inches of my life to make it happen, and that's what I take pride in. Will the belt be nice? Yes. Will the paychecks be nice? Yes. But I know who I am, and I'm not defined by a belt.
Wow, it's interesting, and we're hearing more and more fighters talk about that, how the belt doesn't define them. You know, Cruz is an outstanding fighter. There's so much on the line here with not only the belt, but the rivalry. Obviously, you're going there to win, and we know you're a positive guy, but, you know, if for whatever reason you don't beat him, how hard would this loss be for you?
It won't be that hard. I'm not tripping, man. I got the good life. I'm not going to let that affect me. I am going to win, but my life won't change up or down of whether people call me the champion, but I will win.
Well, we spoke to Cody Garbrandt on the show, who told us you had a conversation with him about retiring after beating Cruz at UFC 199. He mentioned that it would be a picture-perfect finish to your career. Is this the case? Would you retire if you beat Dominick Cruz? And can you explain your thoughts behind potentially wanting to retire if you do win this title?
No, I'm not sure if you guys are interpreting that right from Cody or not. I mean, I know that he did say it would be a picture-perfect way for me to go out. But I would like to do is beat Cruz, then fight Conor at 145.
Wow, there you go. So that's the big plan. 2 big fights back-to-back.
That would be it.
And let me ask you, because those are 2 massive fights. I mean, some would look at that and call it a career. Is that sort of like your plan to retire afterwards, or do you think you would continue to have more fights after that, or is this a little bit too early to talk about?
One thing I'm very known for is being terrible at planning ahead. So we'll just chalk it up to no answer on that one.
Sure.
Right. And I'm just curious because obviously a huge fight, you versus Conor McGregor, and especially if you beat Dominick Cruz, I mean, and McGregor does beat Diaz, how likely is it, do you think, for you to get that McGregor fight? Did anybody in the UFC say anything about it? Is it a possibility that's on the table that anyone's mentioned? Or is it just something that you're hoping for after this fight?
You know, you never know in this sport, but I do know that I got a call from Dana White offering me the fight that Nate Diaz took.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact. So, you know, he told me I would never fight Conor, and Conor and I got into it on the show, and I actually like Conor. You know, we got into it on the show about he wanted to fight me and I wanted to fight him in Ireland. And then Dana said, you guys will never fight. Then Dana called me in the morning and said, you know what? I told you never fight. This is your opportunity. We want to give this to you, blah, blah, blah. I said, all right, let's do it. And then I got a call back from Dana saying that Conor wanted to fight Nate. So that's what happened. So is it foreseeable? For sure.
I want to get off the Conor McGregor topic, but just quickly, why did he say you guys will never fight? It seems like a weird thing to say.
Probably some sort of negotiation that was going to happen in the future. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, he just said that it's not going to happen, but we got very close. We got 11 days out where I thought it was going to happen. You know?
Let's talk about this fight quickly. I mean, Dominick Cruz is known for his footwork and head movement, and that's arguably his biggest weapon. How do you deal with that? And after a close fight with Frankie Edgar, who also possesses amazing footwork, do you have a different approach to preparing for Cruz in this fight?
You know, like I said, I feel like I did a good job last fight. I guess, you know, scoring a couple more points could be a key. Maybe a couple more takedown attempts, or just a couple more punches landed, or capitalizing when I get him hurt. I honestly thought I did a good job fighting him last time, but if they gave the nod to him, then that's it. I think I need to get the nod, or I need to finish.
And the thing is, he's always said, or he said it multiple times, that, you know, your biggest strengths or the only tools that you have are the overhand right and obviously your guillotine. And we did watch that interview on the Colin Cowherd show where you were talking about how you've got other weapons. You know, for the fans who may have missed it, what are some of your other weapons and areas where you can capitalize and edge Dominick Cruz out?
Well, I've probably got some of the best elbows in the game. I dropped Jens Pulver with a left hook. I dropped Jens Pulver with a left to the body. I've got, you know, uppercuts and knees. I actually hurt Frankie Saenz to the body last time, and then I hit a left kick to the head. I've finished, you know, a record-setting amount of people on the ground. I mean, the guy's joking. He's just trying to hype himself up. I hope he thinks that. That's great.
Now, Uriah, we know you're limited on time, and last couple of questions before you have to go. Recently, big news was that it seems like Joseph Benavidez has officially left Team Alpha Male. I just want to know, how did you find out about this news?
I've been in contact with Joseph, you know, throughout the whole process. He's been here many times, and we always have an open dialogue. I mean, the guy got married. He's living in Vegas, and he's always owned a house. Now he owns a couple of houses, I believe, in Vegas. His wife is out there, and you know, I feel like feels like maybe he's just needed to try something new. He's been very close to getting a world championship a couple different times. I'm on very good terms with Joseph. I mean, I hate to see him go because I love having that guy around. He's great energy, but he has been, you know, splitting time for a long time, and I think he just made a decision.
Is that one of those things? Yeah, everyone's noticed that he's been going down to train at Team Elevation. Is that one of the things that made you sort of see it coming and wasn't such a big surprise? I'm just wondering, you say you've been talking about this. How long has this whole process been going where, you know, you feel like he may have been on his way out?
Well, we've never stopped guys from going to other places to train up until the whole fiasco with TJ actually leaving, you know? I mean, the truth is Joseph's cross-trained throughout the years everywhere, and it's to be honest, I saw it coming. I've talked to Joseph throughout. He's always had an open dialogue about a bunch of different stuff, you know, since I've known him, and I actually heard from other reporters about Megan O'Leary talking about it for a long time, so I knew that she was kind of in the mix in that decision, and like I said, we hate to see Joseph go. He's been a huge part of the team for a long time, and I will be rooting for him.
Justin Buckles, he was talking about the situation. He sort of made it seem like Joseph left over the fact that, you know, he's the new head trainer and the trainers have switched up. Did it have anything to do with that whatsoever, or was that just pure speculation?
I have no idea what conversations they've had. I know that they've had discussions as well. I've tried to just, you know, I built this team by leading by example and just being someone that gives back to the team, but I've never wasted my time worrying about other people. I've always been training hard and bringing, you know, the best opportunities to my guys and stuff like that. But, you know, once I start sitting around and worrying about everyone else, that's when things become a problem. So other than you know, Joseph was in here a couple weeks ago, just kind of stopping in to see everyone and kind of like an adios, really. I just hate to see him go, and I really feel like he's going to be missing out. This team is pretty incredible, and the new situation that we have in here is the same regimen, but with an invigorated, enthusiasm and passion by the team leaders has been awesome. And it's too bad that he's not going to be a part of it. And you guys will all see how great Team Alpha Male is going to be doing, and we're excited for it. And it sucks that he's not a part of it.
Well, obviously the first step to Team Alpha Male and obviously the greatness, that is going to be UFC 199. So as we wrap up, going back to you, let's have the prediction, Uriah. When you visualize your victory over Dominick Cruz, if you visualized it, how does it happen? How do you see yourself finishing him at UFC 199?
When you don't like someone, you always just imagine yourself punching him in the face and knocking him out. So that's the case. But I'll do whatever I need to do. I'll knock him out. I'll choke him out. I'll slam him on his head. I'll, kick him in the nuts once at least. Just joking. And then, whatever I need to do.
Well, there you guys go. It's going to be a very exciting matchup. You can catch Urijah Faber take on Dominick Cruz at UFC 199 June 4th or June 5th here in Australia. And follow Urijah on Twitter at Urijah Faber to look at what's going on leading into the fight. A lot of interesting stuff happening as well. Urijah, thank you so much for jumping onto the show. We know how busy you are, and best of luck at UFC 199.
All right. And where are you guys right now?
We are in Melbourne, Australia, the best place in the world.
Australia. You guys are plugging Twitter. Don't forget about Snapchat and Instagram and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well,
you guys on that yet?
Where can people check you out? Is it just at Urijah Faber?
It's at Urijah Faber on Snapchat. It's at Urijah Faber 1. But in Australia, you guys use those also or no?
I think that's going to come to us in about the next 7 years. We haven't got. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, of course, we're all over it. In fact, my girlfriend follows you on Snapchat. So I don't have Snapchat, but she tells me about everything you're getting up to. So yeah, you can't sneak anything past us.
Oh, nice. Yeah. All right. Cool, guys.
We'll let you go. Again, thank you so much for stretching it out, man. We really appreciate it. Have a great training session and good luck in the fight.
Thank you.
See you,
Appreciate
right? Bye.
Hey guys, it's UFC light heavyweight Ryan Bader, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
And there he is, the California kid, Urijah Faber. Wow, I'll tell you what, we spoke about it in the interview, but the guy has had a crazy career in a bunch of main events, big fights in the WEC, big fights in the UFC, and now, at this point in his career, UFC 199, potentially, the biggest fight of his career against Dominick Cruz. You have to respect the fact of how relevant Urijah Faber has stayed in the game, Cass.
Yeah, I don't know if this rivalry with Urijah Faber versus Urijah Faber. I don't know if this rivalry with Dominick Cruz will necessarily define him in his career. I think people will, at the end of the day, look at how many times he fought for the title and how long he was able to stay at the top of the division. Whether he wins the big one against Dominick Cruz or not is sort of a separate story. But I do think one of the things that people remember Urijah Faber for, even if it's not the main thing, will be this rivalry with Dominick Cruz, because it's pretty hot. It's pretty intense.
Oh, it's so hot right now, and you're absolutely right. Just the fact that he's been able to stay up the top for so long just shows how tough he is. But guys, speaking of tough dudes that have been able to stay in the game for a really long time, Rashad Evans and Glover Teixeira squared off at UFC Tampa just recently, and we're going to be breaking down the card for you. But before we get into it, this card almost fell apart a number of times. Shogun was originally scheduled to fight, but he was replaced by Glover Teixeira. Tony Ferguson, in a fight that me and Casper were looking forward to tremendously. That Tony Ferguson Khabib Nurmagomedov fight fell through. He was replaced by Daryl Hotcher, and then of course Lyoto Machida and Dan Henderson. A fight that not that many people are actually looking forward to that much. It didn't really make much sense, but hey, it was on there, and it's always fun to see Dan Henderson fight. That fight fell through. Lyoto Machida flagged by USADA. We'll be talking about that in just a sec. And of course, Islam Makhachev pulled from the card late notice. He was informed by USADA of a potential anti-doping policy violation. He had a fight with Drew Dober. Dober got his show money, but the fight was pulled at last second. So lots of fights not happening on this card, but still, very, very luckily, the card was stacked and a lot of great matchups. Now, before we get into breaking this thing down, Cass, this whole Lyoto Machida situation, a lot of people don't really understand what happened, what he got caught for. So I guess we'll kick it off there. What exactly did Lyoto Machida take? What did he get caught for?
All right, so Wednesday the 13th of April, which is Thursday the 14th here in Australia, Lyoto Machida was officially pulled from UFC on Fox 19. USADA made the UFC aware that Machida declared the usage of a banned substance. So it took a few days from the time Machida submitted the test to the time UFC pulled the fight. By our research, our Batman detective skills, we're looking at least 3 days. So the substance that Machida got into hot water for declaring was 7-keto-DHEA. So it's naturally made by the human body via the adrenal glands. As you get older, your body produces less. It can also be made synthetically using soy and wild yams. So if you've got some spare potatoes at home, you've basically got some steroids. And it's used as a bit of an anti-aging supplement. So its effects very little backed up by actual science, but it is believed that 7-keto-DHEA, it can increase muscle mass, bone strength, it helps with low energy and fatigue, aids in weight loss and decreases fat gain, and it can help you with your mood and concentration, improves sex drive, and taken for erectile dysfunction, none of that needed here at Submission Radio, and it helps with general athletic performance. That's what it's believed. It's not necessarily proven, but nevertheless, I mean, you can buy it at Walmart, and it is marketed as a dietary supplement. I don't know if you can buy it at GNC or other places like that, but WADA, WADA, lists it as a prohibited anabolic agent, aka a banned substance, so you're not allowed to take it. Here's the interesting thing about it, right? We had a look at Lyoto Machida's past test history, and this is all according to the USADA website. So he has been tested 4 times in his entire career by USADA. I would imagine he's done tests beforehand, but we're just talking about USADA here. 2 of them were in the first quarter of 2016. That's January, February, March. 2 of them in the second quarter of 2016. That's April. So he got tested twice this month. He has never been tested until this year, and not once in 2015. You might think, well, USADA's been around for a while. I mean, his last fight was in June 27th against Yoel Romero, and that was before USADA officially came in. So no out-of-competition testing all of last year. Important to note is that in this case, Machida didn't... Well, he did fail a test, but it wasn't a case where, you know, he did a urine sample, they took it back to the lab, and they said, Mr. Machida, you failed. It was more a case where he wrote something down, and, you know, I mean, when USADA comes around, I'm under the impression they ask you what you're taking is in supplements. You write it on the form. You know, Lyoto did write it down. I don't think they would have said anything on the spot. The people who do the collecting most likely take it back to the lab and they report it, and then the results are looked over. But at some point they realized, oh shit, one of these supplements that he listed as taking was an actual banned substance. The other interesting thing is, you know, to point out is that Machida's never failed a test in his career. So it could mean one of 2 things. And here's where things get a little bit thick. Either he's only just started taking this banned substance excuse me, very recently, or he's been taking it for longer, and this is just the first time he's declared it. So that's the big question. How long has he been taking it? Was it years? Was it since his light heavyweight title run? Or was it merely for a few days? Dennis, what is your theory on this one?
It's a tough one because obviously you mentioned he doesn't really have a history of failing other tests. For me, it's one of those things where I think maybe he just got unlucky and he was incredibly stupid not to know he's not allowed to take it. But at the same time, I can't give him... I have to say, look, it's his job to know what he's putting into his body. I mean, great, he didn't know, he didn't mean it, all of that and the above, but he still, you know, did a really stupid thing. The fight was canceled. Dan Henderson was ready to fight. It was last minute, and it doesn't matter whether he knew or not. He should have known. At the end of the day, he decides what goes into his body. And I think a lot of athletes are sort of getting this idea in the UFC that, hey, look, I didn't mean to take the substance. Like, the substance, I didn't realize it was illegal, and here I'm going to tell you that I've taken it, or I didn't mean it, but at the same time, you've still taken it. It doesn't matter whether you meant it or not, you've still taken it, and it still jeopardized the fight. So I can't give him a pass on that area. But what about you, Cass? What do you think about this whole situation?
Well, I mean, you don't really know, and I think one of the keys is how long he's been taking this substance for, and I'll get to that in a second. We don't really know, but if you have a fight coming up in a couple of weeks, why would that seem like the perfect time to try out a new supplement? I mean, you have to cut weight. You're in the final stages of camp. Why would somebody go, hey, I think I might try this new thing, put it into my body? You don't really know how my body's going to react. You know, I may be water loading or whatever. You know, it's down to a science of how to, you know, get into weight. And I'm going to try this new thing. Unless he wanted something that would help him cut weight, and he saw it at Walmart being advertised as a dietary supplement. He thought, oh, you know, I'll give this a go. He's getting older. Maybe the cut is getting harder for him. But the thing that makes it so weird is that if Machida was somehow trying to cheat the system, why declare it? That's what makes it seem like it was an honest mistake. It's one thing, and I'm not saying it's an excusable mistake, but it seems like an honest mistake. It's one thing for him to fail a test that he expected to pass, but to declare a banned substance, I mean, that's shooting yourself in the foot. Like, I can't understand why anyone would do that on purpose if they're somehow trying to cheat the system. Here's the interesting thing, right? And this is why I was saying it depends how long he's been taking it for, because this might be the first time he's declared it, but when this test comes back, I'm very curious to see if it'll be positive or negative. And I'm talking about the actual lab results. Because if it does come back negative and clean after Machida admitted to taking something banned, then it throws a lot of question about the effectiveness of this testing and how effective it really is at catching banned substances. And then you wonder if he was taking it, during his last few fights, and then you wonder if he's been taking it during his whole entire career when he was a light heavyweight champion. So I feel like there's actually a lot riding on this test, and I don't know how USADA works. I don't know whether we'll actually, hear whether it's negative or positive. They may just say, look, he failed the test. And the question might be, well, how did he fail it? Was it the lab report? Was it the urine? Or was it, what he wrote down? And they may say, oh, he failed it. Fail is fail. It doesn't really matter how. But I really want to find out what happens with the test. Because, if it's clean, it doesn't look good on USADA at all.
What I'm wondering here is, obviously, he declared it, and people know that there's got to be some kind of consequence here. In your opinion, Kaz, how will this affect what kind of suspension or what kind of punishment he gets? Will it affect it at all? Is he still looking at the same punishment? And what kind of punishment do you think he might get?
Well, in theory, it's supposed to be 2 years, and you and me were sort of talking about this the other day. He technically didn't fight with it in his system. They caught him before he fought, and this is really the first sort of time that Lyoto Machida has been tested before a fight by USADA. They may... Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. I think 2 years seems like... I don't want to say appropriate. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting here going, suspend him. I want to see him suspended, but... He doesn't really have an excuse. It was in his system. That's the case. He had a banned substance. He's claiming that it recently got banned in 2016. That's not true. It's been banned since 2005. So in theory, he should know. Unless USADA have been inconsistent. We saw this thing with Yoel Romero, and I'm not blaming them for that. But even with this, what Islam Makhachev tested for, a lot of Russians and Dagestanians and even tennis players, Maria Sharapova. I forget what the substance is called, but that's a whole different story. But the point is, USADA are looking at potentially letting people off for that drug. So I don't know. Maybe he's. Maybe he will get, a little bit of a lighter suspension, maybe 6 months. We'll talk about what, happens and what's next if he does get the 2-year suspension. But just before that, I want to sort of address whether he is a cheater or is he not a cheater. And it's not so much whether it's our opinion that he is, but there's a lot of people who are really raining down hard on Machida, saying, Brazilians always cheat and this and that, and he is a cheater, and he was always dirty. I'm just wondering, what do you think about that, Dennis?
I don't think he is a cheater. I mean, you made the point quite clear. He declared it on the form. I think if he went around it, didn't declare it on the form, and they ended up catching him, I think there's more of an argument there. But I just think he's just incredibly stupid in this occurrence. So, no, I don't see him as a cheater. How about you?
If you're going to take something new, I think it's and we're talking about sort of fault here. If you're going to take something new, it's your responsibility to check the WADA website or email USADA's, Jeff Nowitzki and ask him, and ask him. And just on a side note, there's a great article by MMA Fighting's Mark Raimondi where Jeff explains how he gets a lot of these emails every week. More often, fighters asking, hey, is this safe to take? And more often than not, he tells people, look, these things are low risk, but he doesn't rule anything. In this case, had Machida emailed him, be like, hey, I picked this up at Walmart. What do you think, Jeff? He would have told him straight away, dude, this is banned. You can't take this. You will fail a test. So essentially,
incredibly stupid. It was an incredibly stupid move, right? Anytime you take a new substance, I think fighters should know now. Anytime I introduce anything new, any kind of help to my training, you just email. You just do it. It's too much of a risk to just trust what the labeling says or just trust what someone says. I think anyone should be doing it. It was an incredibly stupid move.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's 100% Lyoto Machida's fault, but is he a cheater? In my opinion, not necessarily. I think the term cheater is reserved for people who knowingly take banned substances with the intention of getting an upper hand and fooling the system. They go hand in hand. In this case, it doesn't look like Machida was trying to fool anyone. And if he was, he's certainly not a criminal mastermind. I mean, he would have done very poorly if he was part of the Ocean's 11 team. I think he shot himself in the foot, and I don't think he's a cheater for that reason. Maybe kind of stupid, but not a cheater. So I guess what we're looking at is what's next. What do you think happens now? If he gets the 2 years, we don't know what's going to happen. He may get 6 months, he may get 2 years. I think it's going to be 2 years. But if that happens, what do you think that does for his career, Dennis? How do you think that affects him, and will we see him back?
Well, I mean, 2 years, he'll be 39 years old. I mean, he's looking good for a guy who's 37. Obviously, and a lot of people forget how old he is. He moves around quite well, but 39, especially with his style, I think it's probably kind of likely he might even retire if he gets that 2-year suspension. And in that case, I think it does hurt his legacy quite a bit, because even though he's had a lot of great moments in the octagon, a lot of people will sort of just remember him for that. I myself will remember a lot of the great fights that he had, but especially a lot of the new fans, the casual fans, they'll sort of forget about that, and they'll just remember him going out on that note. So I think publicly it will hurt his legacy quite a bit. Absolutely. I think a lot of hardcore fans might see past it and still appreciate what he has done. But I just think that would be a tragic way to finish out your career. And I think maybe in a lot of ways, he'd still aim to fight at that 39 years old time frame, because maybe he'd still want to have a couple of fights, sort of let people see he still got it, and sort of forget about him sort of going out on that note. But yeah, I think it'd really affect his legacy if he gets the 2-year suspension.
Well, what sucks, and I feel really bad for Dan Henderson here, because he was saying how he's not going to get paid, and he's invested a lot of money in training camp, and I think he was saying 50 people were flying out to see him, and all those, literally, and all those people can't, change their plane tickets, so I feel bad for Dan, but at the same time, I think Dan was a winnable fight for Machida, and so even if he, let's say, in some way, fought Dan, beat him, retired, that would have been a much better way to going out. And that's taking the suspension out. We're just talking, fighting career, just looking at his record. But yeah, you mentioned 39. Well, here's the thing. His birthday's in May. So if he comes back and he fights at 39, that'd be a month and a half just after the suspension. Realistically, he'd probably be coming back at 40.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
That's really tough. I mean, he's coming back off 2 back-to-back losses, one of them a destruction choke at the hands of current champion Luke Rockhold, and the other a brutal TKO to Yoel Romero. So his title aspirations are literally looking worse than ever, and he doesn't have the name of St. Anderson Silva, where you can come back at 40 and still have showcase fights and events built around him. He's just not the same name, and if you want to see what legends look like when they come back at 40, Anderson Silva's a perfect example. So unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have all but officially seen the last of Lyoto Machida, and that's if he does indeed get the 2-year suspension. If he does get it, I'm saying he's done. That's a career. He's not coming back.
Yeah. Just an incredibly sad story, really, just for the fans and just for Lyoto and his team, and just the career that he's had to go out on that night. Just a big mistake made, and it's just one of those things, just incredible stupidity, and it may cost him, like we mentioned, a big part of his legacy. So just, incredibly sad for me to sort of hear that. But what can you do? You got to declare this stuff. I think fighters need to learn that even one of the greats like Lyoto Machida, this will happen to him now because he didn't declare what he was taking earlier on and ask about what it would do to his, if it's legal or not. So you got to be vigilant about this stuff, guys.
Well, unfortunately, Lyoto Machida looks like he's taking one for the team, because I think this will be a massive lesson to other fighters going, holy shit, this guy's career basically finished, all because he didn't double check what he was taking. Same with, Sharapova, with what happened to her. It was a substance that they introduced this year as on the banned list, and her and a bunch of other athletes were taking it, and now they're all facing suspensions. Even
Hector Lombard got incredibly close. He's lucky that his test came earlier and didn't hit that peak where you get the biggest suspensions, because that could have really hurt his career as well. So it's just crazy stuff.
Yeah, I think the biggest sort of silver lining here is for other fighters to really take note and learn from this, because and you know what, it's probably going to be happening a lot more. But that's the thing, you can really only plead ignorance so much. And I think, I guess the only good thing, or not really good, but the only other thing is that this is sort of early into USADA's reign over the UFC, so we're seeing sort of the growing pains. I don't think there'll ever be a day where, there aren't fighters being caught for taking banned substances, but yeah, you can really only give the first year or so for fighters to say, oh, look, I didn't check, I took a supplement, I didn't check, I didn't email Jeff Nowitzki, I didn't double check, so yeah, huge bummer for Lyoto Machida.
I have a feeling Jeff Nowitzki is going to get a lot of emails from now on.
Yeah, he's going to be like Ari Gold. His wife's going to be pissed off because his phone's always going to be going off. He's like, baby, it's the bat phone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think the bat phone's going to be for the main event guys, and the prelim guys get like his assistant. But still, a lot of people will be checking emails. But incredibly sad story. We'll see what happens with that. And you bring up some great points, Casper. What will the test show? What kind of suspension will he get? A lot of questions still unanswered. We'll keep on top of it and see what happens. But getting into UFC Tampa, I mean, a lot of fights lost, but still, I think a lot of people forgot how stacked this card really was. So many great fights sprinkled throughout the prelims, the Fight Pass card, and the main event. A lot of great fights. And we'll kick it off by talking about the Jon Dodson versus Manny Gamburian fight. I mean, what can you say? It was an amazing performance from Dodson. He hurt Manny, he hit him with a couple of straight left hands, swarmed in on him, hit him with a bunch of uppercuts, and bang, it was over. It was super speed. You could literally show the fight maybe 10 times over, and it still would be a fraction of one fight. I mean, Cass, did you expect an outcome like this, or did you think Manny would be a bit of a tougher challenge because of everything that he's been able to achieve in his career?
No, I think this is exactly how it's going to go. Listen, a lot of respect to Manny, but obviously he's not the striker that Dodson is, and just the speed factor was such a big difference. I fully expected this. Once again, EA UFC 2, my picks are right there. They're locked in cement, baby.
Nice.
So I'm picking
what are you getting here now? Some more points?
Some more points, yeah. I don't even know if I'll get enough points to feed myself this week, but, hopefully...
Have you been saving your points up, or have you been spending them as you get them?
Nah, I'm like Conor McGregor, just spending all my money, but I don't really earn the kind of money that Conor McGregor does. So if he's earning millions, I'm earning like couple of thousand and being like, yeah, he's like renting a Lamborghini, I'm renting a Prius. So
I like it. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I fully expected this to happen with Jon Dodson for him to beat Manny Gamburian. And here's the thing, Jon Dodson isn't currently ranked at bantamweight. We'll see where the rankings fall, because that's the thing. You can't rank a fighter. Even if he says, look, I'm moving to a different division, you can't officially put him on those rankings till he has the fight. We'll see where he ends up in the top 15. Gamburian isn't ranked either. And I don't know, maybe Dodson will be ranked outside the 15, but I think that he's going to get a fast track because it's one thing to be marketable, but he's spent so much time being promoted because of the flyweight division. So he's coming off as like a contender in that division. Okay, he didn't win the belt, but he's, been on pay-per-view, he's been on Fox cards. I fully expect him to see, get the fast track treatment. He may even be versing TJ Dillashaw soon, but yeah, he's definitely going to be somewhere inside that top 15, I think.
Yeah, and I you know what? I love Dodson in this weight division. I mean, look, flyweight, he's done everything he could do, and he was a great talent sort of being wasted in a lot of ways because the matchups just weren't there. And here, it's sort of exciting. You have this potential of having the rematch with TJ Dillashaw. In a lot of ways, he sort of has a bit of a speed advantage over a lot of these guys because they're bigger, but he's quicker. And it's going to be interesting to see what he can do in the division. So in a lot of ways, the division is very exciting as it is at the moment with everything that's going on. But it's great to know that in the future, you'll still have some exciting matchups possibly with Dodson. So that's cool.
Well, bantamweight's super exciting, but I think Dodson was exactly what the flyweight division needed. He put on exciting fights, and he made for a challenger for Demetrious Johnson in times where he was really needed. He provided, those big marquee fights for that division as sort of big as they could have been at that time. I mean, Dodson versus Demetrious, that was a big fight, and obviously he lost it. Very smart. I'd rather see him move up to a different weight class where he has previously had success than sort of waste away at flyweight and be, in that sort of gatekeeper, not really gatekeeper, but that second best to never be kind of, scenario, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, certainly. It's going to be exciting to see what he can do, and just the personality of the guy. I mean, I know we've seen him fight a million times before. We've seen him do his interviews, but just how he carries on after his win, all his movements, all his mannerisms, he really is just out there. Just one of those dudes. You don't meet him very often, and when you do, you really appreciate the fact that you have. The guy is just pure dynamite. I hope people go check him out at Disneyland. I think he said he's going to Disneyland, at Disney World. People need to track him down. That guy would be fun to go on rides with.
He's too fast. No one will be able to track him down. I really like Dodson. I like his personality. I actually find it to be pretty awkward. Sometimes you never really know whether he's coming or going as far as conversations. You don't really know what he's going to say next. And I think it's because he's got so much stuff going through his mind. His mind works at the same speed that his fights do. Just incredibly fast. And it's like too many people trying to fit through a door at the same time. You got one guy coming through, another guy like rolling forward. It doesn't really make sense, but you see what he's trying to do. You see what he's trying to there, and he tries to be a promoter, and he's a pretty good trash talker. So I'm really, really looking forward to see what he can do at bantamweight. Now, moving on in the card, just a quick mention, Santiago Ponzinibbio had a really, really good win over Court McGee. Gave Court actually his first ever stoppage loss in his career. So we're not going to really talk about that fight extensively because I want to move on, talk about Raquel Pennington, Bethe Correia. Good win for Raquel Pennington. Fun fight. What did you make of it, Dennis?
Geez, it was a really, really good fight. And it was one of those fights you're surprised. You forget about it and you're like, whoa, this is on the prelims. Hold on a minute. This is a big fight, huge fight. Raquel Pennington, let's just go back a second to her fight with Holly Holm. Raquel did a really good job against Holly Holm. And I think people sort of have forgotten about her in a lot of ways. She beat Ashley Evans Smith at UFC 181. She had that great fight with Holly Holm. And then she had a second-round submission over Jessica Andrade at UFC 191. Didn't really have that many people sort of lighting torches and getting pickets and going, hey, Pennington, check her out. She's great. But I think this performance has really opened a lot of eyes. I had Pennington winning this fight before it even happened. And I was very, very impressed with her footwork, her combinations, what she was able to do in this fight. I mean, look, I think Bethe has improved. I think she has. I think the 3 months that she spent at AKA for this fight, I think they worked on some stuff. She doesn't just run in anymore. She has a few less holes in her game because before she just sort of run in and she just do her best to sort of strike, but there was heaps and heaps of holes. She was really, really open. Here she sort of saved her energy and went back and forth, but she still has a lot of work to do when she does versus these sort of top-level people like Raquel Pennington. I was super impressed with Raquel. It was great to see her get a bit of limelight. What about you, Cass? What did you think of this one?
Look, this is a really good fight, and it was a fight where I wouldn't have minded if this was a 5-round fight. It was really, really close. I actually thought that Raquel Pennington was going to be a lot more dominant in this fight, and I'm not trying to knock her because I really enjoyed the hell out of it, but in the first round, you saw her, she was very sort of in and out. She wasn't really staying in front of Bethe Correia. She didn't get sucked into the brawl, and then later on as the fight progressed, rounds 2 and 3, she really sort of fought Betch's game plan, and you know, as much as I enjoyed the fight, it kind of doesn't really show the best IQ from Raquel Pennington, at least in this fight. So I'm hoping that she doesn't sort of get sucked into brawls in the future if she wants to win, but if she wants to entertain us, then I'm more than happy for her to do that. I agree about Bethe. Bethe definitely improved. She just looks a lot more refined in general, and I mean, I could have potentially seen Bethe walking away the winner with that one. I don't know about you. I wouldn't have been outraged if Bethe got that decision, but nevertheless, I do think it was deserved by Pennington. And just sort of looking forward, she sort of had a good point about being the dark horse of the division. She had actually a really good promo afterwards when she spoke to Joe Rogan. I would like to see her fight the winner of potentially Jessica Eye and Sarah McMahon. Those girls at the moment, Sarah McMahon is ranked number 6, Jessica Eye is ranked number 7, and Raquel Pennington is ranked at number 11, but she just beat number 8 Bethe Correia. So it'd be a steady move up, and really one of the only sort of possibilities considering that everybody from 5 to the champion is already booked in fights.
Yeah, that would be great. It would be great to see that matchup. And look, Bethe still has a future in the division. I mean, she is improving. She's looking better, and she still draws a lot of interest. So it'll be interesting to see who they put her up against, because she could still win a lot of fights against girls that aren't in the top of the division. She'll run out, and she'll hit them with those barrages of strikes, and they won't be able to hang in there with her like she has in the past. But the big question is, will she be able to improve enough to hang in there with the Penningtons and the girls even higher in the division? So at the moment, I think she's improving a little bit. If she keeps improving, maybe in a few years' time, we might see her versus some of the girls up there. But no doubt about it, she still draws a lot of attention. She can still have a lot of great fights in the division.
Yeah, I really do feel like Raquel Pennington is the far superior fighter. And I think if that fight played out a few more times, I do see it getting better and better for Raquel Pennington and her dominance, her performances being more dominant. I do feel like Raquel will go further in the division. You know, we've talked about it before with Betch's biggest wins. They were against Julie Kedzie, Jessamine Duke, and Shayna Baszler. And I mean, you know, you got Julie who wrapped up her career, Jessamine Duke not doing so well, and Shayna Baszler, I believe she retired as well, and or at least she's definitely not in the UFC anymore. So we'll see. But here's the interesting thing about that is, you're right, she feels like she spent an eternity in AKA, and you do get mixed results with fighters going to a brand new camp. Sometimes their first fight out of that new camp is a bit of a hurdle, and she actually did really well. Sometimes you see fighters that are really dominant, they go to a newer camp, like say a Glover Teixeira, like a Junior Dos Santos, and they just, completely shit the bed in their comeback performance, and people think, that was a waste going to that camp, but she actually looked pretty good. So I would expect that Betch's probably going to look better and better over the next few fights. I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Oh, for sure. And I love the term "shit the bed." It just gives me the worst images in my head. So I love what people say. Well, look, let's talk about the next matchup: Beneil Dariush versus Michael Chiesa. It was a fight. Again, a lot of people forgot about this fight. It was on there, but a lot of people weren't really talking about it. A lot of people forgot about how great of a matchup this is. Talk us through this, Cass. What did you think of this matchup?
Yeah, so Beneil came out, and one thing that you notice about Beneil is we already know he's a wizard on the ground, but his striking is constantly improving. I do think that Michael Johnson won that fight, but it's not like Beneil, looked crap against Michael Johnson. His striking has always been improving. He was chewing up Chiesa's legs, and he easily won that first round. Michael Chiesa comes back and submits Beneil Dariush, a guy who's never ever been submitted in his career. Just a phenomenal, crazy, huge win for Michael Chiesa, by far the biggest win of his career. And even before this fight, I'm guilty of that too, kind of forgetting these guys are on the prelims. For me, Michael Chiesa is much must-see TV. Every time I see him on a card, I'm super excited. What did you think of this fight?
Yeah, agree with you. Beneil looked amazing. His striking looked really, really good in that first round. I was so impressed. I was like, wow, what's going to happen here? But yeah, Michael just being able to submit him, and what he submitted him with. I mean, a lot of people don't realize how tough it is to submit someone with a rear naked choke that's across the jaw. It hurts a lot, but you got to have amazing grip strength to actually finish it off against a guy like Dariush, who's seen it when it comes to grappling. I mean, he's been in that position a million times, and being able to finish it from there, I mean, he must have really been destroying his jaw. That grip strength must have been unbelievable. The big thing is, he called out Tony Ferguson after the fight. I think probably a bit unlikely at this point. He's probably not at the level of Ferguson in the rankings, but he's certainly a very exciting fighter, like you mentioned, Cass. So the big question is, who would you give him next? Who do you think makes sense next for him?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends whether Ferguson does get Khabib, because really, I don't see too many other options for Tony Ferguson if he doesn't, if they don't, run back him versus Khabib. But I'm just trying to think. There's a couple of options.
I've got here maybe the loser of Barbosa and Pettis, or maybe the loser or winner of Poirier and Bobby Green. Could be some good matchups for Michael.
I was also going to say Michael Johnson. They're very close on the rankings. He just beat Beneil Dariush, who's number 7. Michael Johnson's also number 7. But then who did you say, Bobby Green or Dustin Poirier?
Yeah, they're fighting, so maybe the winner or the loser of that, or the winner or loser of Barbosa and Pettis.
I guess it just depends whether they want to bring him up slowly or bring him up fast. But I do think he's got a lot of momentum. I mean, he main evented the prelims. He'd had that call out. He's a fun personality, and, he has exciting fights. Man, choking out Beneil Dariush, that is just an insane statement, especially considering a guy like Chiesa, he's known for the rear naked choke, and he was able to hit it on a guy, with the ground game and the pedigree of a Beneil Dariush. So I think he's hot right now. Yeah, I'd love to see either one of those. Poirier, Barbosa, Pettis. Who's the other one?
Bobby Green.
Any one of those fights. And they probably have a lot of momentum. I'd give him the winner. He's on 3 in a row at the moment. Yeah, I'd love to see him up there in the division. Just really sort of inject the lightweight division with some new blood, Sometimes the division can get a little bit stale with the same guys up there. And I think you do have guys that are looking like potential contenders, like you do have a Khabib, you do have a Tony Ferguson, but I think you need to sort of stack the deck and, think, well, what if, say, one of those guys gets injured, or what if you sort of run through those contenders already? So it's good to get a Michael Chiesa sort of waiting in the wings. If he wins his next fight, he's probably looking at, a title eliminator of his own.
Oh, yeah. Just keep him away from Cowboy Cerrone. It would be a great fight, but I just don't want Cowboy to beat him when he's so hot right now. I want to see him sort of ride the streak out for a bit longer.
Yeah, totally. I think that'd be a really fun fight, but I don't want to see that just because Cowboy has had so many title so many. He's had 2, but I feel like he just had his title shot. He lost. If he beats Chiesa, he's destroyed, a potential contender. And he's at welterweight now anyway. Cowboy doesn't need that shit. Save him for those, 3-hour notice fights.
Well, going into the next fight, we had Swanson versus Diaz. It's not the Diaz of Nate or Nick persuasion. It's Diaz with D-I-A-S. It was an interesting matchup here. Swanson has fallen on some tough times. 2 losses in a row to Edgar and Holloway. He was sort of up with his back against the wall, back to the drawing board, as the commentators said. What did you think of this one, Cass?
Look, it was an exciting fight. I really like at the end where he almost finished Hakron Diaz. And in a lot of ways, this card, it was the story of comebacks. Cub Swanson was one of the comebacks. Khabib, Betch Correia was coming back after a while, to a degree, Rashad Evans. So there was a lot of comebacks. Yeah, it was a good fight. It was a good fight, especially considering his incredibly long layoff. And this was his chance to sort of rebuild his career. And, he did it in impressive fashion. I mean, some guys have looked so much worse when they've been away for... It's been 2 days less than a year. So that's a long time to be sitting on the shelf. It was an impressive victory. What did you think?
Yeah, it was a good fight. I think Diaz brought it. He had some really good moments. It was a shame that he was sort of not hesitant, but he just sort of stood there. He didn't really put his stuff in as much as he could have. I think it's really tough to fight a guy like Swanson who has so much knockout power and is a little bit unorthodox in his own way. But I thought it was a good matchup. I think Swanson looked good. He knocked Diaz down a couple of times. And how about at the end, at the very last round where he knocked Diaz down and Diaz was on the ground and he was giving him that look, that angry look. I'll tell you what, man, if he gave me that look and I was on the ground, I would just tap without him hitting me. So Diaz surviving that as well. I think Diaz has a bright future. He just has a few things he needs to fix. He needs to put things together. He just can't stand around there. He's got to put more of his strikes together because he's got a lot of great things going for him. But I think this is a big win for Swanson. It really shows that he's back. He really needed this win. He was coming off a couple of losses, even though it was Edgar and Holloway. Two guys are super tough. People don't look at that. They just look at it as two losses. So now they're sort of reminded as to why Cub Swanson's great. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens to him next. Yeah,
well, I mean, like I mentioned before, he definitely is rebuilding his career. Those two losses really took a lot of steam out of him because people were talking about him getting the next title shot. And you're right. People don't really think about it that, he lost two of the greats. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't matter. You can't give someone a title shot off two losses in a row. And, it really sort of pushes him far away. So this was a good fight and it was a good test in the sense that he wasn't going up there against the top of the top. This is a nice winnable fight. He passed his test. We saw that he still got it. He looks re-energized. And I'm just looking at the rankings at the moment. I would really like to see him versus Ricardo Lamas. They're both coming off wins. Lamas beat Diego Sanchez, Cub Swanson, Ricardo Lamas. I think there's a potential for fireworks there.
Oh, for sure. And Lama's, been pretty quiet. I haven't heard much from him lately. So that would be a great fight. That would be a really good fight. And whoever wins that fight would get a huge boost in their career. So a lot on the line there. I think hopefully the UFC go that way because that would be really exciting to see who can edge that out. Because matchup-wise as well, I mean, both guys have so many weapons. It would be really interesting to see who walks out victorious.
I know they fought before, but again, this was in 2011, so it has been a while. And both guys have sort of come full circle. They've, Lamas has competed for belt, Cub Swanson hasn't. In the first one, Ricardo Lamas lost, Cub Swanson won via arm triangle. So I do think it's a good rematch, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll be interested to see what happens with both Diaz and Cub Swanson in the future. Now, moving on to the next one, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Before we get into this fight with Daryl Hotcher, let's talk about the fact that Tony Ferguson didn't make this fight. For me, this was the fight I was looking forward to most out of probably all the cards coming up until they obviously made UFC 199 and 200. This was the fight I was most excited for. I wanted to see what was going to happen when Khabib met Tony. Cass, disappointment when you found out that Tony wouldn't be in this fight?
I've been, silently but not so silently campaigning for this fight for a long time. And even before it was made, and when we spoke to Elias, this is the fight that I listed as the one that I'm most looking forward to. So it was in the main event for a reason. I was super, super disappointed when it fell out, but it happens. I really hope they remake this fight. I hope that, you could potentially give Khabib the next title shot. I know that Daryl Horcher isn't... Well, I mean, he's obviously unranked. He's making his UFC debut, and it looks a little bit funny when you say, who did he beat before he got his title shot? And a guy making his UFC debut. And for the record, I think Daryl Horcher has a bright future ahead of him. He is a dangerous opponent. And you know what? His takedown defense actually impressed me. He's not known for having great takedown defense, so the fact that he was able to, give Khabib a little bit of trouble was impressive. And he is a good puncher. He's a good counter puncher, and there was always that, slight possibility that he might knock Khabib out. So Khabib comes back, stiff test, but I still want to see him against Tony Ferguson. What about you?
100%. 100%, 100%. I hope that fight happens. I really hope they can figure out their scheduling and this fight gets put together. I'm just really excited to see what would happen if that happens. But let's talk about this matchup. I mean, no need to really delve into it and break it down. Basically, Khabib got Darrell down, and Darrell did a pretty good job of defensive grappling. He survived the first round, incredibly tough guy, but the second round didn't really go his way. Eventually, he got beaten and stopped. Now, like you mentioned, I was very, very impressed with Darrell and what he was able to do. Like you said, he wasn't great at stopping takedowns. He had some issues in that area, but he did quite well against Khabib. I think Joe Rogan gave him a lot of praise, and he does have a very bright future in the division. I mean, taking a fight with Khabib on 2 weeks and helping him have this fight as well. I think Khabib and the UFC really appreciated it. Big question is, what does this do for you in terms of Khabib? Does it prove anything? Does it show you the fact that, look, he's back? Or is it the fact that Darrell wasn't much of a challenge? Does it just not really show anything to you?
I kind of think this is the perfect fight to come back to. And it's funny because we talked about Tony Ferguson being the perfect fight, but in a sense, you got Khabib coming back. You really want to just let him dip his toes in the water, see how he's going. He's had, 2 years on the sidelines. You
Crazy.
Would expect that he might not be 100%. But, the way he handled Darrell, it was almost the perfect fight for him. It's one thing if he came back against a guy like Darrell and, either lost or was an incredibly close and competitive fight, but it wasn't. It wasn't close at all. Sure, there were moments where Darrell, briefly stuffed Khabib's takedowns, but essentially it was all Khabib. This is the perfect fight for him. I mean, you can't really ask for anything else. I was going to say that the only thing that would make it a perfect fight would be if he did get that stoppage in the first round. He didn't, but it was an incredibly dominant performance. Can't take a single thing away from him. I mean, how would he look against a guy like Ferguson or Alvarez or Dos Anjos? I don't know. That's the big question. But we do know that it's not like he's shot. It's not like those 2 years on the sidelines have left him as, half the fighter that he was before. So that's kind of why I want to see him get that test against Tony Ferguson. But at the same time, 23-0, you can certainly make a massive, massive argument, to give him a title shot. Not to mention that he's beaten the current champion. So I'm sort of happy either way, but I just hope that at some point we do see that Tony Ferguson-Khabib fight. Not only to test Khabib, but, to test Tony Ferguson as well and see if he can, face a challenge like a Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And Hotcha got a lot of respect from fans. Joe Rogan said some really great things about him, which carries a lot of weight in the MMA world, and he's set up to have a lot more attention on his next fight after he has a proper camp. So a big opportunity for him next. We'll keep an eye on him. But let's talk about this co-main event cast. Tecia Torres versus Thug Rose. Now, the last fight ended in a decision, and the win went to Tecia Torres in 2013. Fast forward 3 years later, they're facing off in the co-main event of the card. Before we get into what happened, did you expect a different outcome?
Yeah, I thought Thug Rose would have been a little bit more dominant after her last couple of fights. She had a lot of potential, a lot of heat, whereas Tecia Torres, she's certainly been putting together wins and she's had some fun fights, but at times has been slightly underwhelming. I know she won the first one, but I don't know, Thug Rose just seemed on fire. She completely dispatched Angela Hill and then put a really, really dominant performance over Paige Van Zandt and, really showed off a lot of her skills. This is a super close fight, and I really wish we had another 2 rounds. I kind of think it could have gone either way. What did you think?
Absolutely agree. I mean, you mentioned with the Correia-Pennington fight that would have been good with 2 rounds, and this one especially would have been great. And when we were on Twitter, I mean, all we saw was people asking, why isn't this 5 rounds? I wish this was 5 rounds. Imagine if this was 5 rounds. It felt like a movie that got stopped halfway through, and you never really quite got a chance to see the ending. I mean, not taking anything away from Thug Rose. She did a great job, but it was an incredibly close fight. Let me ask you, Cass, in terms of the fight, who did you have winning it? Did you agree with the decision, or did you think Tecia Torres won it?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I actually had Tecia Torres winning. I think in that first round, and bear in mind, I was partially distracted. I was, looking through Twitter, so maybe I didn't get the full assessment. But watching it live and in real time, I mean, there was that moment where Tecia Torres almost dropped Rose Namajunas. She hurt her in the clinch in the first round. The second round, I'd give it to Rose, and then the third round, I know that
That's a
Rose,
tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, I know Rose got Tecia down, but she didn't really do a lot on the ground. I think before that, Tecia was winning. Her flurries, she was getting in there. She just looked more aggressive and she looked like the busier fighter. I know Rose landed some nice hard shots, some, really long shots, some jabs and some straights as Tecia was coming in, but Tecia landed her own in the flurries. So I kind of had Tecia winning, but like I wouldn't call it a robbery, really. I mean, I could see Teixeira winning, I could see Rose winning, I could even see it being a draw. Like, really, it's much of muchness.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I agree with you. You know, I'd need to sit down and rewatch that third round a few times just to really understand whether it went to the right person or not. But real time, as I was watching it, I had the first round to Teixeira, second to Rose, and the third one to Rose. Incredibly close fight, and definitely, depending on what happens in the career of both girls, if they're both dominant, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing a third one and this one at 5 rounds, hopefully.
So officially, who did you have winning? You had Rose, yeah?
I had Rose, yeah. I had Rose winning it.
Here's the big question, though. Is she ready for a title shot?
You get a lot of people on Twitter, and they're saying, look, after that performance, we don't feel like she's ready for Joanna.
Yeah.
But
then who else?
Yeah, I'd like to see her. I think I'd like to see her have the title shot. I think it would be a great story. Apparently, she had a coffee with Joanna. Joanna was in town, and she wanted to catch up with her and say, hey, since we're going to fight each other, let's have a coffee. So who knows? Maybe that will soften Joanna up a little bit, and she won't want to kill her as much in the fight.
Well, that's the thing. You know, Tisha's obviously a great fighter, but when you struggle with the striking of Teixeira Torres, it doesn't really bode well for the strike. You know, how are you going to deal with the striking of Joanna? But then you look at the rankings, and it's like Rose is third. She beat number 4, so she already was kind of, you know, beat someone behind her. There's Carla Esparza. I don't want to see her do that rematch. I don't really care. Then there's Claudia, Gadelha or Cloudjaw, as Mike Goldberg says.
Right. Is this the proper way to pronounce her first name, or is this a new thing, a new trend?
I think it's a new trend started by none other than Mike Goldberg.
I was like, who is he talking about? I was literally like that. I was like, who is he talking about? No, seriously.
You thought
what's going on?
You thought top 25 was announced.
I thought there was a different tough opponent. I was really confused. And the way he said it with all that confidence, like, hey, that is her name. You're like, have I really been getting it? Like, we interviewed her. We were like, we have blah, blah, blah here with us.
Yeah.
Like, did we say her name wrong? Like, that wrong? Like, really? I don't know. So it's not like that.
I don't think so. Right? Well, I'm Polish, and I can definitely say he's got Joanna's name completely wrong.
Yeah.
I remember when she first burst into the scene, and Goldberg was like, Joanna, young, JJ. I was like, what? I think, I love Goldberg. I think, he enunciates stuff funny. I think it's like, I don't know, most people would probably say Claudia, but I think in Brazil, and I'm just kind of taking a leap of faith here, I think it's like Claudia, but Goldberg takes it up like 10 notches, and he's like, Claudia. So, I don't know.
Or Joe Rogan, I think at one point he was trying to talk about her, and he was trying to decide what to call her. Do I go with the Goldberg name? Do I go with my own version?
Yeah, it's easy to just say Gadelha or Brazilian girl.
Yes. Brazilian girl. Or they could call it Challenger, Brazilian Challenger. Joanna champion versus Brazilian Challenger. We just don't want to upset anyone, you know?
It's a lot easier and softer on the tongue. I feel sorry for the people who are, breaking their tongues trying to pronounce Joanna's name. This is like Claudia Gadelha and Joanna Jędrzejczyk is like the worst possible combination if you're trying to pronounce names.
May I say that for the people listening at home and that don't know this, you're unofficially one of the best pronunciators of her name.
No, I think it's official. I think,
what did she say? She said it's official?
Something complimentary. I don't know. I probably blew it up in my mind. Something a lot nicer than what she really said. I think she was taken back by the way I pronounced her surname. And then I told her I was Polish, which is like cheating. It's like taking name pronunciation steroids because it's an unfair advantage, basically. So
USADA flagged you and your title was taken away the next day.
But I admitted it. I declared it. I'm like...
You were like the Lyoto Machida of pronunciation.
I was like, I'm Polish. And they're like, oh, that's banned. I'm like, I didn't know. I got it from Walmart. I had no idea. But yeah. Anyway, so you got Rose Namajunas, Cloudjaw, Carla Esparza, and then you got Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I think she's going to wait. I mean, considering that Claudia Gadelha and Joanna Jędrzejczyk are going to fight, in a couple of months... I can definitely see Rose waiting. It's not like it's a super long time frame. I don't mind if she gets another fight. I just don't know who she could fight. Everyone else is basically taken up. Jessica Pene's fighting Jessica Andrade. Valerie Letourneau. If she beats Rose Namajunas, then you've got Valerie Letourneau as a title contender again. I think you have to give her a title shot now. UFC can market it. I'm sure we'll be excited by the time the fight comes around.
Yeah, and who knows? If Joanna isn't champion, be a different fight. Who knows what's going to happen? Well, I reckon give her the title.
We're all sitting here thinking that Joanna's going to be the champion, and that's not even a guarantee. You know,
That's right.
Could be Rose
And then you got a
Claudia.
different thing going on. What did they give her an immediate rematch? You never know what's going to happen. They love giving immediate rematches. Joanna gets an immediate rematch.
Yeah, well then Rose has to fight someone else. I hope that regardless of how Joanna and Claudia goes, I just hope there's no rematch regardless. Unless a fan runs in
No more
with
rematches, people.
Yeah.
End it.
Unless a fan jumps the cage and runs in with a steel chair causing disqualification, I think that's the only scenario where I would see a likely rematch or a justified
He's from
rematch.
Bellator. He's invading the UFC. There's a whole invasion angle happening. Anyway, I don't want to waste it.
The way you
the
say
pro
it,
wrestling fans are saying yes. The non-pro wrestling fans are like, arrest that man.
Well, the way you sold it, it just makes it so much more likely now. All right, let's quickly talk about this main event. Glover Teixeira versus Rashad Evans. It was supposed to be Shogun versus Rashad Evans. And those guys, man, they've been circling each other for years and years and years now. I wouldn't be surprised if that fight never, ever happens, Rashad Evans versus Shogun. But hey, Glover steps in, knocks out Rashad Evans. Is this what you thought was going to happen, Dennis?
I actually thought this was going to be dragged out almost into a 5-round fight and a decision. So I was, you know what? I thought it could be a possibility, but I didn't expect it. How about you?
Yeah, I just thought Glover Teixeira would win. He's looked a lot better recently with Rashad Evans. You don't really know. You've got that theory that, okay, he was coming back after a long layoff, and people don't usually look great after a long layoff. But, nevertheless, losing a fight to Ryan Bader, and no disrespect to Ryan Bader at all. It's just that a lot of people expected Rashad Evans to beat him. And then you got Rashad Evans' counter-striking style, which, look, Glover Teixeira is hittable, but I also think he's very aggressive, and at this point in his career, he's just looking so much better than Rashad Evans. Man, super, super impressive win for Glover Teixeira, and as EA UFC 2 Ultimate Team can attest to, is exactly what I predicted, first round KO. Or maybe second round.
More points.
Yeah.
More points.
More points. More moves. I'm rich.
Wow. So you predicted this?
I don't want to say I predict these things because that's just super douchey, but kind of. I think I said second round.
Very impressive.
I thought it was going to be the second round, but yeah.
Very impressive. Yeah, well, it was a very, very impressive win for Teixeira, and great to see him with a big win like that. And like you mentioned with Evans, I mean, he lost to Bader. He's beaten Sonnen and Henderson. He lost to, obviously, Little Nog, and before that, Jones. You could argue that his last win over a tough competitor was against Phil Davis in 2012, which was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Rashad's been on a massive slide. I think it's no secret that we're probably not going to see much more of Rashad. I mean, this is one of his last fights. They may make that Shogun fight as a nice, fun fight to go out on, but he was completely gone. He didn't know where he was. He was asking the referee what happened.
Yeah.
You saw him as soon as he got up. He was like, "What happened?" And it was kind of a flash KO. Like he was up as soon as he went down. But yeah, he was completely out of there. And it's not really surprising. He is older. The only other reason why I thought maybe it would be a competitive fight is the speed advantage. Rashad's a lot faster, but even then, like at 36 years old, your speed's going down, and that was a big part of Rashad's game. Being a counter striker, being very reactive, hitting reactive takedowns, hitting reactive punches. And once your speed goes, once you get older, it's very, very tough to come back and very tough to reinvent yourself and come up with a new game plan to beat people. So I think, without a shadow of a doubt, and I say this really respectfully because at one point Rashad Evans was, the best, well, literally the best fighter in the division. He was a champion, but, he went undefeated for a very long time and had an incredible record. And it's still, like, if you look at his losses, Machida, John Jones, Little Nog in what was a horrendous fight, Ryan Bader and Glover Teixeira, he has versed the best of the best, and he's only lost to really tough people, so nothing against Rashad Evans. I have to quickly say, when I said that was douchey, I don't mean Conor McGregor's douchey for saying I predict these things. I'm just saying it's really douchey if I said it. So just to clarify.
Yeah, no, for sure. And a guy who's been ravaged with injuries, Rashad Evans, never really got a chance to have that second run. Constant issues with his knees, constant rehabs, just issues all around, and never really was able to get that wind in his sails. Obviously, the Ryan Bader loss didn't help, but people forget that it was actually in mid-February in 2015 that he was actually sidelined 6 to 7 months because he had to undergo another knee surgery at that age. So like you mentioned, his speed always a factor, but when your knees go through all that, when you go through all these injuries and surgeries, it's just tough to get rid of all that rust, I suppose, and get back to where you were. And at 36, maybe he can't. So, I mean, let's go to the big question. Everybody was saying it on Twitter, Rashad Evans should retire. What would you like to see Rashad Evans do? Would you like to see him have that one last fight against possibly a guy like Shogun before he retires?
I don't think he has to retire. And here's why. He's not at that point where he's suffered devastating knockouts. You know, like against Ryan Bader, it was a pretty clear loss. But again, he was coming back off injury and it was a decision. He's only been knocked out twice, one by Machida. And it seems like whenever he does get knocked out, it's in spectacular and brutal fashion. We all remember the Machida knockout, and then here we go, years later against Glover Teixeira. I mean, look, is he in his prime? No. But again, Glover Teixeira is a very tough opponent, so I don't think there's really anything tragic in that. I don't think he needs to retire yet. I think he can have that fight against Shogun. That will be a fun fight against two guys that aren't anywhere near title contention. Or you could give him a fight against Jimmy Manuwa, and hopefully you build Jimmy Manuwa up. You know, if Jimmy Manuwa does beat him and knock him out, you've got a guy who, you know, had steam behind him at one point, had some bad losses to Rumble Johnson and Alexander Gustafsson, but if you can beat a guy, a legend, a future Hall of Famer, like a guy like Rashad Evans, then he's got some steam, and, you know, Rashad's at number 7, it'd be great to see Jimmy Manuwa up there at number 7 as well, and, you know, potentially breathing in some new blood in the light heavyweight division, because that's another division that isn't really very, very stacked. It's a pretty thin division, and sooner or later you're going to see the same guys versing each other again and again and again in rematches or title rematches or contender rematches. So that's my theory. You could even have a Pat Cummins versus Rashad Evans fight, and hopefully you hope for the best, and Pat Cummins gets the win, and then you sort of boost him up the division as well. I think that's kind of where Rashad Evans is at. You can't, if I'm the company, you kind of, with all due respect, use him to boost other talent.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I kind of get annoyed when people are just like, all right, the guy should retire. I mean, just let's see what happens. Give him a couple more fights. And I agree with you. That was only his second time he was KO'd, so I don't think it's cold for him to retire immediately. But I think you bring up a really good point about that light heavyweight division. When you look at the top 10, a lot of those dudes are getting up there in age. I mean, Daniel Cormier, people don't realize how old he is, but he's in there. He's in those late 30s, isn't he, Cass? I'm not sure how old he exactly is.
I thought he was 53. But because
53,
but black people don't age. They look amazing for like years and years to come.
He's 37. All right, so Daniel Cormier is 37. Anthony Johnson's relatively young. John Jones is relatively young. But Alexander Gustafsson, he's been in there for a really long time. Glover Teixeira's on the older side of things. You've got Rashad Evans, obviously. You got Shogun in the top 10. You got Little Nog in the top 10.
Yeah.
So a lot of aging stars in that division, and even though they have a lot of up-and-coming guys like Jimmy Manuwa and Pat Cummins, you still sort of wonder who's going to replace the superstars once they're gone. No doubt about it, having Jon Jones helps. Maybe he'll have to stick around in the division longer than we thought. I don't know what's going to happen.
And Pat Cummins, like, as much as you love to think of him as sort of an up-and-comer, I think he's sort of past that state as prospect. He's in the thick of it, and it's sort of do or die, but he's 35 as well. Yeah, like, there was years where he didn't get fights. Yeah, there's a lot of older guys, light heavyweight and heavyweight. We are, and the way that Jon Jones is just dispatching of challenges, or was, you know, in the past, and who knows, maybe he will in the future. I think it's another tough division where if you're an up and comer, it's really tough to get that breakthrough. And I think that's why we're probably going to see Glover Teixeira fighting for the title sooner or later. I mean, it depends. I like this Anthony Rumble-Johnson matchup. I think Anthony Rumble-Johnson, I don't know if I'd say needs a fight beforehand, but just, you know, as far as he hasn't fought in a while, and this DC Jon Jones fight looks like it's going to get extended. Actually, what am I talking about? By the time that fight happens, Anthony Rumble-Johnson's going to need a tune-up fight, and I think Glover Teixeira is a good one. But yeah, it's a very top-heavy division.
Yeah, as Teixeira said, let's make some money, baby. So should be good to see what happens. But there you go. I thought it was a great card. I really enjoyed watching it. A lot of great matchups. A lot of people forgot about a lot of these matchups. And I was watching some fights, and I'm like, hey, this could be a main event on a fight night card. If you go back like a year and a half, you would never have all these matchups on one card. And we've got all these crazy cards coming up as well. So great job by the UFC of having a pretty awesome card. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. What about you, Cass?
Super enjoyable. I got no complaints. That's the crazy thing. Even though all these fights fell out, it was still a really good card. And I don't really see anyone complaining on Twitter. These things can sort of go either way. I'm glad that the UFC is stacking these events. And you got to feel for Fox, because they had all these fights promised to them, and they're like, great, we're going to do massive ratings. And then all these fights fall out. But yeah, all in all, for a last-second mad scramble, I mean, I think Khabib was the big one. People are just so sick of not seeing Khabib in the octagon. They just want to see him, you know, against anyone, really. So I'm really, you know, hats off to Daryl Horcher for taking that fight and, you know, allowing that fight to happen. But yeah, it was a great event all in all. And with that, what a perfect segue. I think it was a great show, all in all. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Thank you so much to all our guests, obviously Urijah Faber, Cris Cyborg, and Jon Fitch, and you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed us rambling. That's pretty much it for another episode. Before we go, Dennis, any final words? Anything we got to remind the fans about?
Well, the technique of the week hasn't been around, but if you guys have been on our Submission Radio Twitter at SubmissionAUS, you would have seen there's some sexy new techniques coming. Should we announce it, Cash? Should we let the people know, reward them for sticking around to the end of the show? Who is the man doing the new Submission Radio technique of the week?
Oh, we got to reward him. K1 legend Sam Greco, the man himself. We tracked him down. Okay, he wasn't that hard to track down, but we organized a shoot.
It's like Luke Skywalker in the new Star Wars movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we found him. He was absolutely awesome. We're going to be spitting out a bit of a preview in the next couple of days just to get everybody excited. Some stuff on Twitter, some video action. But yeah, Technique of the Week is back. It's coming back this Wednesday. And I'll tell you what, there was some really, really good techniques. The guy's a wealth of knowledge, an absolute legend in the sport. He's fought some of the best fighters. And, he had that interviewing job as well. So he's spoken to some of the best fighters in the world as well, and these techniques will rock your socks. I'm super pumped for him.
Well, there you guys go. Another big show next week. We'll be breaking down UFC 197. Have a great week, and thanks for tuning in.